I now call the Snoqualmie City Council meeting to order. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Jeans, can you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask the city clerk, please take the roll call.
Councilmember Jeans.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew is not in attendance. Councilmember Lassay has requested to be excused. Councilmember Sundwell.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Mayor Larson.
I am here. Council, I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Lassay tonight, and I imagine I haven't heard from Jim, so Councilmember Mayhew as well.
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to excuse Councilmembers Mayhew and Lassay tonight. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Councilmember Shepherd and Councilmember Jeans.
I'd like to take off the consent agenda the approval of warrants and AB 19-001, AB 19-003.
So everything but the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Jeans?
I have an issue with the land use code interpretation. It's shown here as a presentation item, which would go first, and it's also was attached as an agenda bill under Committee of the Whole. So I'm wondering where it should be.
Are you talking about the appeal regarding the IGA
Yes.
property? The applicant actually contacted us today and asked us to postpone that, so they want to kick it for 2 more weeks to the next council meeting.
So it's off the agenda.
It's off tonight. We won't be addressing that issue tonight, so Councilmember Jeans, if you do have questions, clarifications, we could take that up at committee.
Good.
I have a couple weeks to do that. All right, any other items, council? All right, with the changes as noted by Councilmember Shepherd, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. With that, we're moving on to election of the 2019 Mayor Pro Tem. I'll open up nominations for the 2000 Mayor Pro Tem, and nominations do not need a second. Councilmember Jeans.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Brian Holloway.
Brian Holloway, Councilmember Holloway, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
All right. Are there any other nominations from the council?
Now's your chance.
You get choked up for that?
Now's your chance.
All right, with that, the nominations are closed. All those in favor of nominating Councilmember Holloway to continue as Mayor Pro Tem?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
We have 4 ayes and 1 nay. All right, congratulations, Councilmember Holloway. With that,
Okay.
we'll deal with the appointments and so forth a little bit later in the meeting per your request. Councilmember Sunwell.
Mayor, was there not, during that nomination process, were you able to nominate yourself?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And Councilmember Mayhew, just for the record, has now arrived just after the nominations for Mayor Pro Tem were concluded. So, yeah.
You're voted in, Jim.
All right. With that, we're going to move on to public hearings, presentations, proclamations, and appointments. And at this time, I'd like to. This is appointing and reappointing a lot of terms that are up, folks that are just renewing their terms on a lot of committees and commissions, some of which are only 1-year positions. I'd like to appoint James Hockren, position 1, Rob McDonald, position 3, Carolyn Simpson, position 5, Bobby Harrison, position 7, to the Economic Development Commission, with terms ending on 12/31/2020. Dan Groschlad, position 1, Sun Choi, position 2, Richard Anderson, position 3, and Richard Curry, position 4 of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for terms ending December 31st, 2019. Colleen Johnson, position 4 to the Planning Commission for a term ending December 31st to 2021. Rochelle Rose, position 1, Sandy Grant, position 2, for terms ending 3/31/2023, and Dwayne Johnson, position 3, Art Funamori, position 4, and Jason Rogers, position 5, to the Shoreline Hearings Board for terms ending 3/31/2020. May I have a confirmation for these appointments, Council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for these confirmations. Is there, well, first I'll ask if there's anyone for the public that would like to comment on any of these nominations prior to discussion. All right, seeing no one move forward. Councilmember Sunwell.
Yeah, so I noticed that on the LTAC committee, we've added Sun Choi, who I believe is the owner of the Hampton Inn, correct? Or developer, or
He's-
whatever.
He's managed the project,
Okay.
correct. Per the-
So we had sort of two affiliated with the Salish Lodge. One was with the hospitality company and one was with the lodge itself. Which one did we remove?
I'll let Mark speak to that. And why he's coming forward, just so everyone know, the state statute specifies that a lodging tax advisory committee should be comprised of two representatives from the lodging industry paying the tax, and at least two from agents or organizations that would be recipients of the tax.
Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director. Prior to these suggested appointments, we had a representative, general manager of the Salish Lodge, who remains, Denny, and then Jeff Sprague, who was Columbia Hospitality. Now that we have a second hotel, the nomination is Sun Choi. So Jeff Sprague is stepping back.
Okay. Any other comments or discussions on the appointments, council? All right, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations to those, and a thank you to those that are stepping up and serving on the various boards, commissions, and committees. Next is a proclamation for National Mentoring Month, and Heather Downing here with the Snoqualmie Valley Community Network is here to receive the proclamation. Whereas the City of Snoqualmie honors caring adult mentors who support young people by showing up for them and demonstrating their commitment to helping them thrive. And whereas mentoring program like Youth Success, mentoring a program of Snoqualmie Valley Community Network and the Snoqualmie Valley make our communities and our state stronger. And whereas the quality mentoring promotes healthy relationships and communication, positive self-esteem and growth of a young person. And whereas students who meet regularly with their mentors are more than 52% less likely than their peers to skip a day of school, and youth who face an opportunity gap and have a mentor are 55% more likely to be enrolled in college than those who did not have a mentor. And whereas youth who meet regularly with their mentors are 46% less likely than their peers to start using drugs and 27% less likely to start drinking. And whereas almost half of today's young adults report having a mentor in their youth, and those rates appear to have been rising steadily over the past several decades. And whereas National Mentoring Month is the time of year where engagement from community members interested in becoming a mentor is highest, and an opportunity to celebrate, elevate, and encourage mentoring in communities across the country. Now, therefore, I, Matthew Larson, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do hereby proclaim January 19th as National Mentoring Month in the City of Snoqualmie. So, Heather, thank you for bringing this to our attention and for coming to receive this tonight. And for all the great work the Snoqualmie Valley Community Network does.
Thank you for supporting.
Did you want to say anything?
Sure. I'd just like to thank you and the council for supporting mentoring and encouraging community members in the city of Snoqualmie to mentor youth in our valley. Because as you can see the statistic, it's very important for our youth to have positive role models that are consistent and encouraging for our youth. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Heather. All right, and this time it gives me pleasure to introduce, I believe it's Nate Smith from the local Snoqualmie Valley our community center and the operator of our community center from the YMCA, Nate Smith, to give us a report on what's been happening there.
Perfect. Great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come tonight and give you guys an update on what we've been doing for the past year. So I know you have we're going to go through the slideshow, but also in your packet was a document that I added, which was the history of the Y essentially in the valley over the last many years, going back to 1924. So I just love that when you get a chance to kind of read back through that the Y has been a part of the valley for a long time. So tonight, really going to focus on overviewing what we've accomplished in programming, social responsibility, and in community engagement in 2018, and share some highlights and some notes that are particularly important to me. So kind of in the membership and program, here's just some statistics that are worth noting. So we have just shy of 4,000 members that are part of the Y and use it in various different ways. Folks coming into the actual facility, just shy of 100,000 folks that we checked in through the front door. And that doesn't necessarily include all like community events, but this is just specifically coming in to utilize the Y as a member. For those who are using our Kids Zone, which is a drop-in childcare program where you can bring your little one while you're in the facility, we had just over 18,000 of those checked in during the calendar year. Depending on the time of year, we staff somewhere between 68 and a little bit more in the summertime, with the majority of those being part-time staff. Our community room that we host meetings in, we had about 278 of those hosted, which comprise of Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, other folks who are looking for space to have community meetings. It's available in the evenings and work with them to find time for them. Our before and after school program is something I'm going to talk about more, but on a daily basis, we have about 190 students that are a part of our before and after school program that we're looking after. 1,300 weeks of summer camp this last year, which is a record for us, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. As always, committed to making sure that everyone has access regardless of their ability to pay, and in the membership category, we gave around $80,000 in scholarship dollars to community members to make sure, again, that they have the ability to participate, and just shy of $72,000 for summer and school-age scholarships. I wanted to highlight, through this you'll see I've highlighted a few different folks, and Ron is one of those. He joined as a member a few years ago with really the main goal of getting healthy and finding a community, because he had moved here and was just trying to figure out how to get plugged in. And so Ron, over the course of his time with the Y, he lost about 30 pounds, and he met another person in the cycling class, and he got challenged to do the Seattle to Vancouver bike ride, and so he leaned on Y staff and members to accomplish his goal, and so just a good example of someone coming to the Y and reaching their goal. Oops, wrong button. In the youth program area, as I mentioned, we've had pretty solid growth in our Kids University program, which again is our after-school program, which is mainly housed outside of our facility, serving Opstead Elementary in the school at Opstead, serving Fall City at the actual school of Fall City Elementary, serving Cascade View actually in our building, serving Timber Ridge at Timber Ridge, and serving Snoqualmie Elementary in Snoqualmie Elementary School. And so other than Cascade View, after school we are inside the school system using their space. Expansion of Play Every Day, which is a program that we just started for the very first time in 2018, which is really designed to take a play coach, as we call them, which is a Y staff member, and they go out to elementary schools at recess and organize specific games and activities so that students who are on the playground have a little bit more structure to their time, get them engaged and keep them moving instead of sort of letting them do their own thing. And so it's been really well received from all the schools that we provide that for, and we're looking to continue to grow that program. Summer camp continues to be an area that grows for us. Unsurprisingly, our facility is a little bit limiting in terms of the growth we can manage actually at the building, which is a huge factor in the summer. But sending lots of kids to Camp Terry in Preston is part of that. And we suspect that we'll continue to see quite a bit of growth in our summer camp numbers. Snoqualmie 60, for those who are familiar with what that means, used to be Snoqualmie 50. We work in partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe to identify 10 elementary students at each one of our schools to be selected and sent to Camp Orkyla up on Orcas Island every year. And so each school, working with their counselors and staff, identify students that could utilize it for various reasons. It might be financial, but it could also be just something that they realize that the student could benefit from, is having this opportunity. And so every year we send 60 students from the school district up to Camp Orkyla up on Orcas. In the adult and senior kind of program areas, we continue to try to expand and grow our senior social events and trips. So those are happening every couple months to various places locally, as well as far as into Seattle, depending on what kind of trips we're looking at. Starting some chronic disease prevention programs, such as pedaling for Parkinson's, which I'll highlight here in a moment again. And then we have a program called Enhanced Fitness, which is designed specifically for seniors. And on a daily basis, we have about 30 or so seniors that come and take advantage of that particular program. And that's something that we continue to see more and more of that population engaging with us on. So I wanted to highlight Michelle as well. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's a couple years ago, and during her research of that, realized that taking cycling classes or getting on a bike can actually be quite beneficial to her long-term health. And so joined our Pedaling for Parkinson's program, and it's just an example of somebody who came to the class and realized the benefits of it and keeps coming back because she sees value in it. In the teen program area, some things that we've done, for the first time, we sent a girls outdoor leadership development a trip. So that's during the summer, we identify high school girls to go on a week-long backpacking trip in various places across western Washington. This particular trip, they went down the coastline of the Olympic Peninsula. And it's really designed, again, for leadership development skills. And again, it's targeting high school girls. And it's something that we fundraise for, so we also don't charge the participants to be involved in this, and working with the staff at the high school to identify which girls might best benefit from that opportunity. We've been doing Earth Service Corps for 5 or 6 years now, and that's in conjunction with Two Rivers School. Every Tuesday we're at Two Rivers working with a teacher there and giving students outdoor activity, hands-on learning opportunities. So the photo in the bottom right corner would be an example of that. And so every Tuesday we're with them, busing them around the valley and giving them the opportunity to get involved with some hands-on learning, which has been something that has been a great benefit to the school, and I know that the staff are super appreciative of. We've also have started and continue to do youth in government, which is what it sounds like, is getting youth engaged in the government process, and it's a specific program that's offered across the state of Washington and culminates in a 3-day conference in Olympia, where the students from all over the state kind of take over the Capitol and run mock government for 3 days. And so I think about 500 students across the state participate every May in that particular program, and we send a delegation of around 10 or so students to be a part of that.
And you'd be willing to have the kids run our government for a few days too?
Yeah, I think we've already talked a little bit about having our group this year come in, either sit on a meeting or get engaged locally in some aspect to see what it looks like in that regard. And again, it's something that that the Y takes care of in terms of fundraising for the expenses, so that again students don't have to worry about finding a way to make sure they can afford it. In the social responsibility kind of bucket that we use, we had just over 10,000 volunteer hours through the Y this year, and that's anything from folks who have participated in group events, taking care of the Stillwater Bog, corporations like Microsoft having days of getting involved. We have volunteers who come into the facility and just fold towels and check folks in, and so there's a whole host of different volunteer opportunities, but having over 10,000 hours in 2018 is something that I'm particularly proud of. You may or may not know, but every year we run 2 different community gardens, one here in Snoqualmie and one in Fall City, and then we harvest the produce and donate that back to the local food banks. And so this last year, that resulted in just about 460 pounds of vegetables that we donated back to the food banks. We also offer community showers for folks who don't have access to running water or have other challenges in life that they really just need a place to be able to get access to a shower and get clean and get ready for whatever is coming their way that day. And we've seen a really big growth in this program over the last calendar year, and offered, as you can see, just over 1,500 of those across the calendar year for folks who just really need the opportunity to feel clean and a part of the community. They hang out and have coffee and read the paper in the lobby and interact with staff, and it's something that is somewhat new for us, but we're really excited to be able to offer that to folks. The dentists will love this, but we collected about 200 or 730 pounds of candy this last year from off of the back of Halloween, giving parents the opportunity to get it out of their house and away from their children. And we end up we end up taking that candy and we donate that back to the military, who repackages and it goes overseas eventually after we've donated it to those folks. In conjunction with Kiwanis, we help support their holiday gift drive, where this last year we were able to gather about 130 gifts that we gave back. And then again, some hours dedicated to the Stillwater Bog restoration up on Snoqualmie Ridge, for those who are familiar with it. That's a project that we've been working on for the last couple of years, and from my understanding, we have a couple more years of work to keep that project moving. So here's a picture of Raymond. Raymond is one of the folks who comes through and uses a shower a couple times a month. Just a guy that, sort of fell on hard times at one point or another, and it's just something that he doesn't have where he currently stays. And so he's a character, and we really like having him in the facility and being a part of what the Y does every day. And it's great for him to be able to have that opportunity and feel like, that the community really does take an interest in how he's doing. On the community engagement side of things, we offer a few different large community events every year that you might be aware of. Healthy Kids Day is in the spring. We do a community appreciation event in August, and then Trick or Treat on the Ridge, which is our largest of the year. This last year, we had about 1,400 folks participate in that particular event. Monthly, we offer lunch and jump opportunities, splash and plays, family fun nights, and other things, again, with the majority of those being free for community members to take advantage of. We also offered some learning opportunities in conjunction with the Native American Heritage Month. We did a Pride lecture this year, some conversation around Latinx, Black History Month. We hosted an Indian dance workshop, and we did some programming specifically for Chinese New Year's. And then we also supporting other organizations, whether that's the city through Movies in the Park, Relay for Life, PTSA events. We help the shelter here locally with meals, and as well as the various farmers markets that have popped up over the last 2 years. And here's just a list of some of the community partners that we work with. The list would be longer than that, but we do various different things with those different groups of folks to find ways to improve the community, and it's something that we're particularly proud of as well. And that's the general overview of what we've accomplished in 2018. As I was putting this together, it's hard to distill 12 months of activity and programs down into a handful of slides, but I hopefully captured a little bit about what's been accomplished over the last 12 months.
Great, Nate, thank you. I especially appreciate the focus on the great benefits you provide for the community in a lot of ways a lot of folks are not aware of. Councilors, at this time, any questions or comments for Nate? Councilmember Shepherd.
So I'm just curious, do you ever provide financial reports for your activity?
To the council itself?
Yes.
So we have not done that in the past, but I'm happy to have a conversation in regards to doing that, or having conversations about our operating agreement in general. Okay. And so I'm happy to meet with you in the coming weeks to be able to answer questions or go through those with you. Yeah.
Great.
Nate, per our contract, we specified that, you were to form a local advisory board comprised of Snoqualmie citizens to give feedback, and you provide regular financial reports and statements to the board, do you not?
So our advisory board also doesn't have a fiduciary responsibility to the organization. Okay. So that group doesn't get detailed reports in terms of the financial operating of the Y, as that's really not their capacity as an advisory board members. But like I said, I'm happy to sit down and go through questions that any of the council members have or in regards to that.
Nate?
Councilmember Jeans?
You do, Mayor. You do youth programs, and you go out to the schools to do that, and I take it those are after-school programs. Do you do that by design, or because you don't have the capacity to have all the kids come to you?
Yeah, that's not something I probably highlighted enough in my comments thus far, is that we just don't have the space in the facility, which is a challenge not just for youth programs, but really for pretty much any program that we're trying to offer. But it's not uncommon for us to have a desire to want to do something, but then when you start to look at the schedule and realize unless people want to do something at 10 o'clock on Sunday night, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So, to your point, though, a lot of what we do is off-site at the schools. One, for convenience for parents, because they can pick up right from the school in which they drop off. It's less transportation for students, so they're not on another bus. They can just stay at their home school. But also because in the facility itself, we just don't have the capacity to be able to do that.
Councilor Slimmel.
So Nate, first of all, I didn't know the half of what you guys did. What you guys do is nothing short of remarkable for what it costs the city, which is virtually zero.
Yeah, thank you.
The services you provide to our city are, I know they're underappreciated because they're not known. And so thank you for what you do. Question for you, would it be fair to say that what I'll just call the success of the YMCA was grossly, what it's become was grossly underestimated by the YMCA coming into this 5 or 7 years ago? And if that's true, can you give us maybe some statistics on usage here and maybe how that compares regionally or even nationally?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I wasn't obviously around when the formation of the agreement came into place, but from all that I understand, that wasn't what we've kind of become. Has been a bit of a surprise to everyone in terms of the adoption of the Y, the programs, and really just the demand for the things that we're providing to the community. And so I don't know that in 2010, when this conversation was happening, that we felt like this was necessarily going to be the outcome right away. In terms of usage, the statistic that we most often talk about, which is really penetration of usage from our members and from the community, it ranks right at the top of the list for any Y in the country in terms of folks who access the facility. And so, there's not really any other Y across the country that has more usage from their members in terms of the percentage of folks who are members using the facility.
Quick follow-up question. What do you think, what would you do with, or what do you think you could accomplish with more physical space?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different things we'd love to be able to do, and we know that necessarily all the stuff that we are trying to do every day, not everyone understands all of it. But the ability to have more community-oriented activities happening is such an important part of what we're trying to accomplish. So that would definitely be to the top of the list, to have more opportunities for the community to gather in a place and do whatever they might think about they want to do. And so an example of that is we just started a Pokemon club because there was a demand for it. And so that's what we're doing. And so the ability to fill needs like that across the community would be at the top of what we'd like to get done if we had more space, as well as, no secret that having aquatics in the valley would be an amazing opportunity for our community to have access to water and safe swim lessons and all those type of things. And so that would be something that we would hope for too. At some point in the future, we'd be able to figure out how to provide that opportunity for folks across the valley.
Thank you again for what you guys do. It's awesome.
Thanks, Sean.
Councilor Ross.
So I actually, I'm liaison to the Y board, and to me it's always amazing of everything you guys do. You're not just a gymnasium or summer camp. You provide social services and outreach to the community. And I think one thing you didn't have up there is that you're also a warming shelter, right? For especially when we're do not have electricity.
That's true.
Go there as
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, emergency shelter for the community.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if we have a flood, the folks can go up and use that and sleep there.
Right. And the capacity is an issue, and I know that you have a portable coming in that's going to be sitting next to the building sometime this year, but that's just a Band-Aid. And so I know that we need to eventually address capacity and, expansion.
Yeah, so to that point, for those who aren't necessarily aware or have remembered the conversation, we have purchased a portable that will be sitting near the facility to help us give us another about 900 square feet. It's really not that much in terms of additional square footage, but it does allow us to be able to expand some programming and additional equipment for folks who are using the facility. And so it is a temporary solution to a larger issue of capacity.
Nate, quickly, We have completed the skate park. It looks like it's wildly successful. Kids are loving it.
Yeah.
Do you have any supervisory responsibilities for that?
Not officially, but by virtue of proximity, we do play a role. And we have in the park, whether it was the basketball court that's still there in terms of monitoring behavior, safety, and dealing with whatever it is that comes along. We are the next closest place to go. So when parents have questions, comments, concerns about the activities or lack of activity or what is happening, they seem to find us first. As well as it's not uncommon for staff to spend a little time out there as well, just to monitor what's happening and just see what's going on. I would agree that it's very well utilized for those who aren't up that way all the time. We see lots and lots of kids out there, even on cold days, taking advantage of it, so it's amazing.
Councilmember Holloway.
Other than as we get into some of our other discussions here, I think it's probably good for us to have some solidity to the operating model and the finances of the Y versus supposition. So I guess I'd ask that maybe Dan work with the Y and we bring that conversation. Not saying we shouldn't individually ask questions, but let's do a level set for the council through Parks and Public Works. And if Dan can coordinate that kind of engagement, those who attend as non-committee members and those who attend as committee members can get level set on what's the operating agreement between us and the Y and what are the current finances, how things are going. I just want a good, solid background for that conversation.
Yeah, so just a little bit of a history and or a quick review of the contract, or just what is the relationship between the Y and the city?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to work with city staff to provide that type of information.
I mean, there are still comments out there that, you know,
Yeah,
that the Y building there is like, well, no, hang on, it's not a Y building. They operated on our behalf. There's a relationship there. That's a city building.
oh, yeah.
Let's get that as a solid backdrop to the conversations going forward.
We do plan on, as you know, Councilmember Holloway or Mayor Pro Tem, of adding that as an item in the retreat. So I think that's a good, appropriate place to do a little of that review of contract and history and setting the foundation, as you say. I will quickly add for tonight, and Nate, you can comment if you'd like or not. It's more commentary for me. I know Dave Mayer's here. Dave was the one that was here in 2010 when we helped put this together and ran the facility before he was tapped to go run the Sammamish facility. But there's been a little brouhaha on social media, and a few people will probably tune in to watch this meeting, and maybe a few here tonight, given some alleged controversies in Sammamish about what sort of...
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I don't think it has anything to do with what we're talking about tonight. It's a different city, completely different contract. I was hoping you weren't going to go there because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Okay, well, that's actually the point I was going to make real quick, is it's a very different structure in the contract in terms of what Sammamish provided to the facility compared to us. I mean, they did 30 times of what we did in terms of their investment in the facility. So it's apples and oranges comparison. So
It's not even fruit to fruit.
Yeah. So point well taken, Councilmember Sonwell. I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to talk to anyone from the public that wants to look into that further. But all right. Nate and Dave, thank you both for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate
all the work you guys do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, with that, we are going to move on to citizens' comments at this time. We'll provide time for that, but first, a few ground rules. One is Snoqualmie citizens, the 13,500 who are not here, have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, comments for those that do take the time to attend will be limited to 33 minutes each. It's not meant to cut you off. It's just a matter of efficiency.
33 minutes?
3 minutes. I'm sorry.
He's changed his ways. You're getting excited.
That might have been a stutter if I said that. Did I say 3?
You did.
Okay. Three. Let me be clear. 3 minutes.
Anna's eyes got as big as they've ever been.
Wow.
She did not have enough material.
A lot of celebration going on. All right. Please wait to be recognized. Come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or engage in debate. The council will quietly and respectfully listen to your concerns. It is not being disrespectful if they're not responding. And last, please respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. So with that, let's start with the sign-up sheet, and I'll ask Kim Lingo to please come forward.
Hi. So my name is Kim Lingo, and I live at 38206 Southeast 92nd Street. I wanted to start with, this is a quote from Kofi Annan. He says, "Knowledge is power, information is liberating, and education is the premise of progress," specifically talking about government. Unfortunately, the city administration is controlling the spigot when it comes to information about city plans, contracts, and finances, and the council has largely either failed to recognize or failed to act when the flow of information is being manipulated. And when citizens voice their concerns, questions are raised, they're being outright attacked. And this isn't just hyperbole. I'd like to share with you a couple of recent specific examples. For several months, Councilwoman Peggy Shepard tried to ask questions about the development near Snoqualmie Falls that was recently approved. The legal description of the land discussed was confusing. It was basically a long list of plot numbers and legalese. So she asked for a map. The city administration told her no. She couldn't have a map. Wanting to do her due diligence, she went on to an expert at the King County Planning Department. They gave her a map. That map turned out to be wrong. The legalese in the development agreement was so confusing that even a land expert got it wrong. Now, when Councilwoman Shepard brought this map to the administration, she was told she was making a mountain out of a molehill. Mayor Matt Larson gave the scandal a name. He has labeled it Mapgate. And he accused the councilwoman of making things up and flat out lying to the public. Here's the thing. If the administration had simply given her the map in the first place, none of this would have happened. By limiting the information they were willing to share, they created the scandal. And by labeling it Mapgate, Mayor Larson has actively attempted to undermine good faith efforts of an elected representative to understand what she was being asked to vote on. Now, rather than addressing the problems that led to this conflict, the mayor has chosen to go on the attack. And this has been going on for many months. And the reason I'm speaking up about it now is because I have been the latest target of his attacks. When I saw the agenda for tonight, realized the director of the Y would be speaking, and this is just an example, it's not directly related to that agenda item, I posted an article on Facebook about questionable finances at the Y in Sammamish and wondered, how do we know we're not seeing the same thing here in Snoqualmie? It's a question. The mayor responded with a comment that included statements about me, saying that I was citing an unreliable source of information, about the author of the story, that he's not a professional journalist, about the publication itself, that is a blog of a resident who has an ongoing political agenda. Those are all quotes from the mayor. Nowhere in the mayor's lengthy response did he acknowledge the city has a fiduciary duty to its constituents. Nowhere did he promise to be vigilant in overseeing city finances. And on top of that, every one of the mayor's assertions is false. The website is run by a lifelong professional journalist. And even if the person writing that blog wasn't a professional journalist, would it matter? The story that I shared was written with input from 2 separate CPAs. It was properly researched. It was vetted with plenty of notice to all parties involved before being printed.
Ms. Lingo, if you could please conclude your comments.
Yep. Just one more second. Any citizen can conduct this kind of research. That's why we have a Public Records Act.
Right,
and I hope that in future, the city council, ordinary citizen, or professional journalist, if anybody has a question or concern,
Ms. Lingo, I have to be impartial.
that the city administration would listen and respond,
if you could take your written comments
rather than going on the attack
we can distribute that
and trying to vilify people for simply asking
questions. Can you please submit
questions.
your written comments and we can distribute those? Thank you. And the only other request I would have is if you could please remove the city logo from your website. It's confusing for citizens.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
For you?
Wayne Russell.
Wayne Russell, 8438 Meadowbrook Way Southeast. Actually, what I would like to do is start the year out. I'm sorry that we had to hear this already, but it's part of it. I want to be a little more positive. I'd like to wish all the council members and the staff and the citizens, I really for showing up, and I hope we keep this up for the ongoing year. And the one thing I would like to point out, this meeting is pretty much something that but the real thing, the people that are watching us on YouTube right now, which I'm sure there's quite a few, I would really like to encourage them to start looking up for the committee and the commission meetings, because that is where things really happen. You know, I've listened for years. I've lived in Snoqualmie since, let's see, 1981, I believe it was, when I moved here to the city of Snoqualmie. So I used to be on flood issues, and we used to go to these meetings, quasi-judicial. I can still see Pat Anderson sitting over there in Mr. Sturbank's chair, quasi-judicial. So these people have to ignore us if we talk about the mill site tonight. But the thing is, these committee and commission meetings are where it really starts, and they come out with recommendations. And if our elected representatives choose to ignore those recommendations, it's really sad, you know. And I sit there, and the one thing, as long as I've been in the political field and watched the lights down in Olympia come on the House of Representatives and the Senate floor, I've never seen where there's only one person that puts a nay in, and everything else is almost 100% voted on. I don't care. I like to see, at least see two people say nay. You know, in any one. I don't think I've ever seen that happen yet, and that's not the way it should work. And I've even seen Peggy Shepard vote yay on some issues, you know, 100%. Wow, that's cool. But it should never totally always be 100% because you're not really representing the 13,500 plus citizens that do live in this city. So anyhow, again, thank you for all your efforts and work, and that includes the staff back here too, and especially these citizens. I love seeing more than 3 of us sitting here dragging through this thing along with you, and I know that's the way a lot of you feel we're dragging through it. And look at that, I got a whole minute left. Maybe I should tell a submarine story.
You have 32 minutes left.
Oh, thank you, Councilman Sunwell, 32 minutes left.
Wayne, thank you. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year.
All right, Danny Hubanks.
That's up for submarine story.
Okay, I'm Dana Hubanks. I live at 41829 Southeast 66th Street. Sometimes I forget my address, so I'm reading it. Snoqualmie, Washington. I'm going to pass something out here real quick.
Or Dana, if you could give it to the city clerk, we'll distribute it from there. Thank you.
So there's enough here for everybody.
Thank you.
So I just first want to say that I'm acting under the direct guidance of my attorney tonight, so that's the position from which I'm speaking. Mayor, council, and staff, I'm the president of the Snoqualmie Community Action Network, a local 501c3 nonprofit, as well as a member of Direct Democracy for Snoqualmie, a registered political action committee campaigning for the rights of initiative and referendum in the city of Snoqualmie. Tonight, I'm speaking as a member of this PAC. On February 1st, our PAC will begin the 6-month process of collecting signatures from registered voters in the city of Snoqualmie in order to adopt these political powers. I'm providing you a copy of a January 9th letter from an attorney we retained to help us with the formatting of our petition. Our attorney had previously emailed the draft petition form to the city attorney, Bob Sturbank, on November 19th for feedback on its sufficiency, to which he received no response. On January 9th, our attorney sent a piece of certified mail to Mr. Sturbank, the receipt for which you will find copied in your packet to ensure that he had received the form. There is no standard petition form for this state-sanctioned procedure. Other cities that have gone through this process have faced disputes over proper formatting. In light of this, our intention is to avoid a dispute with you, our city government. Therefore, we are giving you, the governing body, administration, and staff, the opportunity to review the petition form and provide any feedback on its sufficiency. Please do so prior to February 1st, our campaign launch date. As volunteers, we are going to invest hundreds of hours into getting our neighbors' signatures on this form. We will then bring those signed forms back to the city. At that point, we do not want to be told that there's an issue with our petition form. You have the form before you now, and you have the opportunity to review it in the coming weeks. If you see a problem, please tell us. If you wait to tell us until the end of the 6-month process, you're intentionally wasting the time and effort of the people of Snoqualmie in advancing our democratic rights and freedoms. In addition, if we get into a dispute regarding the sufficiency of the form after the signature gathering is completed, taxpayer money will be wasted by the delayed actions of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. All right, Becky.
Mayor, council, citizens of Snoqualmie. Happy New Year, everyone. Oh yeah, I live at the end of Mayor Row, Maple and Maple. Well, Happy New Year. I'd sure like to say that this year we have a brand new start. There's been a lot of problems, obviously, around trust, honesty, respect, and transparency. If y'all have a job to do, the facts and the numbers are crucial to today and tomorrow and our future. If the facts aren't correct, when somebody comes up to the podium, then they should excuse themselves to make sure that they have their facts. And if, how would I like to say this? It's okay to say yay, it's okay to say nay, but I pray to God your vote has not been swayed by the administration. And there's a lot of times when questions are being asked and somebody wants to pass the microphone because they don't really know how to answer it. And council's here for a reason. And Mayor Matt Larson shouldn't have to be addressing so many questions or answering. And I just hope people get up in the morning and do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Becky. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time? All right, seeing no one else move forward, we will move on to the consent agenda, or basically the minutes. Ask council for a motion to approve the minutes. Minutes for the November 26, 2018 workshop and regular city council meeting, for the November 27th, 2018 special workshop meeting, and the December 10th, 2018 regular council meeting. Do we have a motion, council?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes as stated. Any discussion? Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on the minutes? Seeing no one move forward, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. It looks like Agenda Bill 19001 would fall under Public Works. Position descriptions is under F&A, I assume?
Yep.
So if the chairs of those committees could remind me when we get down to those respective committees, that would be helpful.
And the warrants also. Mayor.
And the warrants, yes, that would fall under F&A. Okay, so with that, we will move on to Parks and Public Works Committee. Any report?
Not other than the agenda bills we'll discuss later.
Oh, well, let's pick up that one right now. So Agenda Bill 19001, Water Reclamation Facility Phase 2, change order number 1 with Prospect Construction.
Project construction is approximately 75% complete and remains on schedule for completion in May of 2019. During early stages of construction, several small stages have necessitated out-of-scope services by the contractor. These changes are included in change order 1 and result in an additional cost of $92,363. Move to approve Water Reclamation Facility Phase 2, change order number 1 with Prospect Construction, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19001 as stated by Councilmember Sunwell. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? See, no one move forward. Any discussion, council? Councilmember Shepherd.
So I understand that part of the reason that we've got this additional $90,000 has to do with the fire sprinkler system, and that we missed knowing about this need for fire sprinkler system at the time that we were doing our plan checking. I'd like to understand how that happened.
Jeff or Dan, who wants to speak to that?
I can't honestly say how it happened because I don't know how.
Hold on, Jeff, get a microphone.
All right. How did it happen? How did they miss it? I don't know how they missed it. I wasn't here during the process, so I don't know how that was missed. I assume it's an assumption on my part, but it's a complex facility. The building reviewer, I don't know how he missed it, but he did.
Councilmember Sunwell.
So to expand on that, I think anyone who attended the Public Works meeting, committee meeting last Monday, we got a little bit fuller of explanation that, but basically John, I'm forgetting his last name, our fire marshal, John Cooper. So in the original plans met the requirements of the state of Washington. We have an additional piece of code in our city code that gives discretion to the, I keep wanting to say fire chief, fire marshal, that allows him, in this case, to implement or not implement at his discretion the additional sprinkler requirements. Initially, he elected, whether that was elected not to or forgot to. He's not here. But later on, it was caught after, well down the road, that it was decided that indeed that additional fire code provision that we have put upon ourselves needed to be included in that building, and that is the reason why it was added late. Is that a fair summary of what?
Yeah,
was explained?
I'd say that's right.
But it's still within contingency or within the budget, the cost increase?
Over the overall fund budget, yeah.
Okay.
What portion of the 90,000 was this bringing in the sprinkler system after the fact?
It was $69,000. It's the lion's share. It's the biggest portion of it.
Okay, and as far as having the plan check, that and looking at what other cities do for fire sprinklers, it looks like it's a major plan check process. Do we know who did that plan check?
I don't.
Mayor,
Mayor,
point of order.
Yeah.
The fact that we missed the sprinklers is not germane to the fact that they are required, and that this change order puts those in. We can have discussions in committee later on of who did what to where, but the fact still remains, our ordinance requires the sprinklers. This change order puts the sprinklers in. That's what's up for discussion tonight on this agenda bill.
Point of order sustained. Councilmember Shepherd.
So it's been my experience that plan checkers have a responsibility to make sure that everything
Councilmember
is...
Shepherd, his point was sustained. If you could move on to it. Do you have another point to make or on this item?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions, council? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, well, hold on. So you used a verbiage that was different than what was used at committee meeting. You said it was within the fund balance. That's a very different answer than within the
budget.
The budgeted, the project budget. My understanding is it falls within the project budget. The fund balance is the entire CIP, so obviously it would fall within that. So I just want to clarify that this is within the budgeted amount for this project.
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Is this in Fund 417?
Yes.
For which we do not have a budget, if I would remind council members. So therefore, I think what you meant to ask, and what I understand to be true, is that this is within the CIP amount that has been specified for this
That's correct,
project.
yeah.
And that, in fact, we believe that we will come in under the CIP listed amount for this project, even with these overruns. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right.
I think that's right.
Councilmember Shepherd.
So my understanding is if we have a CIP project that comes from a prior year to a new year, that funding is already approved to continue. Is that not correct?
It rolls forward, yes.
Rolls forward, yeah, so there is funding for this.
Right?
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah, Councilmember Shepherd is correct. Did you want to speak to the former point or no?
Yeah, that's good.
And also, my recollection is that Fund 417 was not subject to the budget proviso as far as not having an appropriated amount for the year, that there was some conversation among council. So my recollection is that there is an appropriated amount. But either way, as Councilmember Shepherd points out, the previously appropriated amounts for a project for which there is a contract in place roll forward into the next appropriation. So those funds are there either way.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Sorry, I just want to correct a misstatement. I said there was no budget for Fund 417. Of course, City Attorney is absolutely correct. There is. It's a very large number. It's $20 million or so. So the point I was just making is that, to follow up, I think, on Councilmember Sundwall's question, you are not saying this is within 20 million. You're saying this is within the specific CIP amount that we've listed and that this council has approved for this project. Yeah, thank you.
Which is what I was asking, actually. But
Yeah, right.
I perhaps was not as artful as I could have been in the question. Okay. Any further discussion, council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion's
No.
carried. Thank you, Jeff. That's one nay. All right. Any other items to report for Public Parks and Public Works Committee?
That's it for now.
Community Development Committee, Agenda Bill 19002, approval of Lodging Tax Advisory Committee mid-year recommendation for 2019 funding allocations.
The Lodging Tax Fund Advisory Committee, LTAC, is responsible for requesting, receiving, and evaluating applications requesting funds for tourism-related programs in Snoqualmie, determining eligibility of the applicants, and providing a recommendation for lodging tax allocations to the City Council. LTAC has reviewed 2 new applications and recommends full funding for the 2019 for both. Move to approve the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee mid-year recommendation for 2019 funding allocations.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19002 as stated by Councilmember Jeans. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, council, any discussion? Councilmember Sundwall.
So as you can tell from the memo, I'm the council member chair on this committee, and this is a second request, so I think what we generally term a midterm request that came back. Originally, we had pulled the Art Gallery of Snoqualmie and Meadowbrook Farm Preservation Association from the original one that I think we adopted, I want to say in October or November as a council, the larger item. I elected to vote to move this forward, these two additional items in that committee. However, did explain that I would be voting against it in council. So I just want to explain why I'm voting against it in council. I want to spend exactly $0 more on what very well could be a misguided effort on tourism until we have a tourism plan. So while $11,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money, I am not willing to vote to spend any amount of money with the Visitor Information Center when we do not have a long-term plan. My concern with the Meadowbrook Farm Preservation Association is, again, even though it's a small amount of $3,947, in principle, I cannot vote for that because I believe also that the plan, although not tied to tourism, is very weak. That is a leadership team that's going through a lot of transition. And while I appreciate what they are able to do with the staff they have, I am not comfortable giving them almost $4,000 to do something that is not tied into long-term success of that farm. So that's why I will be voting no tonight on this for these two individual applicants.
Any further discussion, Council? Questions? Councilmember Ross, Councilmember Mayhew, and then Councilmember Holloway.
So this is considered mid-year, but yeah, we just approved 60,000 or so in October. So is this an evolving process throughout the whole year, or is it truly mid-year?
Fair question. So there's no limitation, and Joan, if I'm going off the rails here, let me know, no pun intended. But we can accept applicants throughout the year. There's a general kind of calling for applications that occurs roughly in the summertime. We meet early fall, mid-fall. That's where we approve the bulk. But we definitely set aside a certain amount that allows for late applicants who maybe don't have something in the front half of the year that aren't thinking about this that might be a very good use of funds. And so we reserve an amount of money, and those applicants can come in at any time. There's no secondary application date. We could have a third one if there was money left over, and we opted not to. If we rejected this today and they came back in 2 months, and the Art Gallery of Snoqualmie, in concert with a really solid tourism plan that likely comes out of CDC, then we could allocate money at that point in time to do that, right? And so there is no formal dates or anything that we have to abide by, but we have a certain amount of funding for 2019, a portion of which was unused, and this $15,000 would go a long way into spending what's remaining. Joan, do you actually have, if this $15,000 were allocated, do we know how much we'd have left for 2019? Or Mark, sorry.
Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director. In the CD committee, that information was requested. We added it to the agenda. It includes estimates, now that we have the Hampton by Hilton coming up. If these were allocated in addition to the $66,000 from October, it's an estimated $92,000 would remain late in 2019 to be carried over.
Okay, thank you. And so that goes to my point of there's a significant amount of increase with the Hampton coming, with the Salish being now fully back online. I believe they've completed all renovations. So they were basically half offline for much of 2018. So they're fully online. The Hampton's coming, and then within the next couple of years, we will start to see revenue from the expansion of the Salish. We have an opportunity with whatever plan comes out of CDC to have more money than we've ever had from LTAC to contribute to something meaningful. Whether, I'm just making stuff up, whether that's shuttling people back and forth and we pay for shuttles to get people from the falls to downtown, or whatever it is. Drone people from whatever it is, right? That's why, to me, it's, even though it's $11,000, I want to make sure that that $11 is tied to a plan and not just throwing stuff up on the wall that might work. We get 5 times the number of people who go into the train station to ask for what do we do around here than we do at the art gallery. And that's nothing against the art gallery. The art gallery is awesome, right? It's just, do we want to spend $11,412 to have them be the city tour guides when 5 times that many people do the same thing for no charge at the train station? So that's my thought on that.
Councilor Mahan and Councilor Holloway.
So I just heard, it's just a request for information. I just heard that some information had been added, I didn't see it, about the other allocations, maybe. I thought that's what you were saying. Is that what that middle item is? Is that something we can put up? I'm curious to know how much money is already going to either one of these organizations before this change, if any?
Nothing. These 2 applications were part of the original set, and in October, the LTAC board committee recommended that they not be funded, and so the city council decision was 0. But based on those issues, we invited them to very quickly fix those or address those issues and come back with a new application.
All right, so there's no LTAC money going to either one of these 2 groups
For 2019.
for 2019, absent this agenda bill?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Holloway.
Wait, Mark. So we did 66,000 prior. We're doing 15,000 tonight. So that's 81,000. That's an allocation of 81,000. How much are we actually expecting in LTAC in 2019?
The total estimate for availability for allocation in 2019, including all that, and future requests, is 199,982.
So we probably have another 100,000 rough math out there that is currently unallocated.
92.
Okay.
Since an action wasn't taken tonight, we'll assume it's 92,000 plus the 15,000 requested tonight.
97,000 if we don't do it.
And those are estimates.
So, and then I hear the chair's comment on his position. What was the committee's position on moving this forward to the council?
I don't know if I want to be in a
committee,
position, I don't want to know if I want to be in a position to characterize that. Sometimes I have a way of dominating a room of small people. Not small people, because I'm a small person.
I was gonna comment where you found that room of people smaller than you.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Yeah, it was in a J.R. Tolkien movie. I would rather have Joan. She was in the room. I'd rather have Joan give the analysis rather than me, because I just don't want to come across as, I don't know if I can separate my opinion from what I saw the others to be. I was not going to hold it up. I didn't feel that was my role as chair to hold it up from coming here. So I voted to have it come here, but they well understood that I was going to be voting against it.
Oh, please, there's a dual responsibility as a committee and then as an individual. So I heard the individual, I wanted to hear what the committee had proposed.
Councilor Holloway, I want to clarify. By committee, you're talking about the LTAC.
The LTAC.
Okay. And Mark, the funding for the visitor center, even with this request, if the council were to approve it, is a substantial drop from last year, is it not?
That's correct. Last year was for 12 months, approximately $20,000. And prior to that was about a half a year when the council had previously addressed the bricks and mortar visitor center versus cell phones, for instance. So for a year and a half, they've been fully funded for that operation. And with this, they've modified their original request to only be from Memorial Day to Labor Day, so that to allow further conversation about what the city council wants to do with the visitor center in general. This is a new council.
And Councilor Sumwell, before I come back to you, I want to look to see if Joan does want to add anything in terms of what was the LTAC committee's recommendation on this funding to the council, the majority of the LTAC? Or was there a recommendation yay or against or neutral?
I believe it was 4.
Well, that's why it's here.
I can look at my minutes, yeah. It was in favor of the recommendation.
I'm assuming it wouldn't have come forward if there wasn't a majority of the LTAC that said they supported this funding.
Correct.
Okay.
If you're talking about votes, the vote was unanimous. There were
Okay, you don't have a vote, huh?
No, I have a vote.
Okay.
Yeah, it was unanimous, but but I
unanimous,
didn't
but bring
feel
it-
it was my response, that it was within my right to hold this up from council.
Gotcha.
And so
Okay, well, I'm
my
asking-
job
no,
was
I'm-
not to sway the room.
I'm not asking what was the vote in terms of bringing it forward. I'm asking about the vote in support of it. I assume that if a majority didn't support the funding, they wouldn't even said, let's send it forward.
It's fair.
Okay, so my assumption was that the majority of the board supported the funding, and the board unanimously voted to bring it forward.
Yes.
I don't believe the board voted to bring it forward. I believe they voted, they voted for these recommendations, and that's what we do. We bring it
Oh, okay,
forward.
and Councilmember Sunwald just didn't know what he was voting for then, that's what you're saying. All right, thank you, John. I think that perhaps gives Councilmember Holloway the information he needed, so, Councilmember Shepherd.
So I had the opportunity tonight to go to the Meadowbrook Farm meeting, and I heard them ask, or explain to me what they want the $4,000 for, and they're looking to do some advertising. They do a lot of weddings at that venue, and they do a lot of work having to do with the elk as far as making that an opportunity for the public to go see what is happening with the elk, as well as a lot of other activities that are going on out there. And the volunteers, they appear to be extremely engaged. They've been with the committee for quite a while, and the director went through all of the things that they have lined up for what they've done and what they're doing. And I think they're actually very engaged in what's going on, and Mount View Parks is the ones who are handling all of the arrangements around doing the weddings. The weddings are generally at least 80 people per wedding and larger, which does bring tourists into our area. So I really would think that as far as the other piece of it, I'm not as, committed to it, but I think that we should at least give Meadowbrook Farms their $4,000.
I'm curious, actually, a question, because I wasn't privy to either conversation about Meadowbrook Farm or the LTAC. On this item with the $4,000 for the Meadowbrook Farm, I'm aware that they have essentially kind of contract with the Skyview Parks District to do much of their promoting and marketing. So how is this money not going right to the Skyview Parks District?
They're not doing they don't do the promoting.
Okay.
So this money, so when you fill out an LTAC application, you have to spell out what it's for. 100% of this, as Councilmember Shepherd indicated, was advertising. So online advertising to tout the services. Now, how that's correlated with what the Skyview Parks does, I'm unclear. Skyview Parks handles their booking. So they have the online infrastructure. If you want to schedule that for a wedding, you would go to the Skyview Parks to schedule that. The idea with this group is that they want to create more, well, what you do with advertising, right? More demand for it, so more and more people would go to that site to book a wedding, which, by the way, I've been to 3 in the last 3 months, and it's a really great site for it. But my bigger problem with this one, much like it was with the visitor center, is if you want to talk about treasures, I know some people think the gravel parking lot's a great treasure in the city. The greatest treasure that's in the city, most of it's in the city, is Meadowbrook Farm. And I would suggest that both cities need to step up and provide way more capital resources to that so that we can make that a facility that is more than just going to a wedding. And because that's mostly what it is, or a birthday party, or whatever it is that's tied to that facility. There's so much more to do, and I just would hate to see money wasted on the finite thing that we do versus kicking in way more money to, for example, complete the trail all the way around, right? That would create an abundance of additional uses not associated with a building at all. Or maybe that building needs to be doubled in size, right? So that's a larger issue for the two cities to figure out when and how we're going to contribute more than the $10,000 or $20,000 that we already do. But that's absent a long-term plan. I am hesitant to give any organization money that doesn't tie into a long-term plan that doesn't exist.
Councilmember James.
I'd like to remind the committee that the committee that brought this to the council, the Community Development Committee, we voted 3-0 unanimously to recommend this to you. I would like to comment on the art facility downtown. It is a brick and mortar physical location for a visitor information center, and we really ought to have this discussion during the year, whether that's an appropriate thing to have, but sort of a Band-Aid for the year 2019. We ought to have some presence downtown, a physical presence that is a visitor information center. We're told that they're all trained to act as a visitor information center when people come in and ask, hey, where's this, or what can we do here? So they are trained. I think they have documented between October and now with respect to how many people come in and how they treat them. So it is a bit of a hybrid, but it is a traditional visitor information center that they have an A-frame and other ways to identify themselves as some place to go for people who come into town and want to know what to do. Now, when we have this conversation about how should we do marketing, how should we do, how do we lure tourists to Snoqualmie, I think we will come up with something that's more internet-oriented than what we have now, but I think for now it is an appropriate allocation of funds for that purpose.
Councilmember Ross.
Is there a possibility to split it so that we can vote on them, each one separately?
There are two main possibilities. One, you can only choose from the list of those that applied. You have two of those. And you could only essentially thumbs up, thumbs down the dollar amount. You can't say, for instance, split the 11,000. So it's either Meadowbrook Farm or Art Gallery.
The answer is yes. You can.
So you can vote.
You can line item.
Separate it.
You could give one but not the other.
Okay.
Or both or neither.
I'd be interested in being
Yeah,
able to
but
do
you can't take like the funds and say, I'd rather put it on this item over here and start moving them around or adding or splitting in half. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down on each allocation.
Okay.
Councilmember Mayhew. Sorry, Sean, it's going to do round robin.
I understand.
Just an information request again. Just looking at the dates, if, does anyone know the answer? If we were not to act here at the beginning of January on the Visitor Information Center project, say we were to act in a month from now, would that still allow the art gallery to provide these services, or would that, are we time sensitive? It looks like the season they're looking to cover is the end of May through September. So is there room for us to think about this further, or is the Visitor Information Center, if we don't decide tonight, is that going to impede their ability to provide these services in that time frame?
Indirectly, we asked that question and had Sally Rackets clarify and give her budget in the amended application. Do your services, regular services, depend on this money for 2019 operations? She said no, they will function. So in that regard, their timeline that they put in the amended application was essentially first week of January, city come pick up the stuff. The week before Memorial Day, come back and put it back. And so that period in between, the only thing it affects is how they budget. And since she clarified that they're going to operate anyway, I don't see that a month would change that. She would like to know now, of course, but waiting a month would, I don't see would impact their 2019 budget. They're volunteers, and this would be reimbursement for operations and facility.
So in that case, I move to, I may not have the correct wording, but I move to delay the consideration of the Visitor Information Center funding portion of this agenda bill for a period of 30 days so that more work can be done on the longer-term marketing plan for the city and get a better sense of how this would fit into that.
Second.
Motion and a second to amend as stated by Councilmember Mayhew. Councilmember Mayhew, I assume you're thinking that would go back to CDC for discussion then, or?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Holloway.
So
We're debating the amendment now.
Okay, so I'm concerned that we think we're gonna come up with a tourist plan in 30 days. Part of my logic in this, I'm having difficulty because I'm holding hostage, these two particular hostage for a tourism plan that I don't think will come into, really be fleshed out, be meaningful in a time period that is in effect for this decision. Okay, so I'm concerned about postponing this for 30 days for something that won't happen in 30 days. I don't understand the point.
Councilmember Jeans.
So in response to that, I'm wondering whether a tourism plan is on the agenda for our retreat. And then perhaps we could have a better knowledge of what we might do for tourism between now and 30 days from now.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Just would second the point of view that I also do not believe that we can get an answer in 30 days, but trying to use my words carefully, I do believe that in 30 days we could have a sense of how long it will be. Is it something that we can do before May, or is it really going to take a much longer period? Because I think if we thought that it was going to take a longer period, I know I would vote one way, which is to make sure we didn't have nothing. Whereas if I thought some period before May we'd have a general sense of whether this fits in, then that might sway me another way. So it's more a 30-day period that gives enough time for some discussion, perhaps the council retreat to happen, and for us to get a sense of what's the time frame around this, which is what I think Councilmember Sundwall was really getting at. So I think it gives us time to get a little more perspective on this for the art gallery and funding without really causing any damage or anything to not be possible to happen. So that's why I picked just the one of the two, and that's the thought behind my 30 days. It forces us to reconsider this within 30 days and see where we stand.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Council, or is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this amendment? Yeah, go ahead. Anna.
Anna Sotelo, 7713 Center Boulevard, Southeast. A few different things after hearing that conversation. One, a year ago, we started talking about like the tourism studies, and I just haven't seen it on any committee agenda, so I'd really like to continue that. I know that we figured out a year ago that we're still where we were 12 years ago about knowing the tourists. I really respect what Sean said, and quite honestly, I attended last week's CDC meeting, and I would have appreciated, I think, if Mark Hoffman would have said that, because he didn't mention that you had said that, and I think that that might have given a different insight to the committee members if they knew that, and so I think they voted not knowing that, so I think that should have been something that should have been passed on to your fellow council members in that CDC meeting, because that's really important information, and I think that's really valid, what Sean is saying. Last year, I know we matched Save Our Snoqualmie $4,000 in city money, and it looks like this year we're not even going to be using them. So I feel like we are just all astray when it comes to tourism. So I really, really, really appreciate Sean's comment about having a tourism plan. And as a merchant, I really, 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 really implore of you guys to please get that higher up on the committee agendas, because as you know, as you can read in the development standards, the neighborhood retail center was never ever intended, and it's written that way, to have any tourism. And if we have people like Christy Crawford saying that they have too much and we're not intended to get some, well, by golly, let's figure out how to get us some up there. But again, until these things make it onto committee agendas, it'll never get discussed. Thank you.
Yeah. Point of order, Mayor. I thought that our procedure was...
I know. I didn't offer the opportunity ahead of time, so I'm trying to remedy that. Thank you, Councilmember May. Point well taken. If the council so chooses, I could forfeit that by my error. But is there anyone else? Yeah, Julie? And just to make clear that for the sake of time, on whether it's the amendment or the agenda bill, this is your opportunity to speak. I'm not going to repeat it when we go back to the original agenda. Julie, we haven't started the clock yet. Julie, go ahead.
Julie Lakebach, 1748. I don't know how much any of you know about tourism or developing a tourism plan, so I'm wary about how that would actually come about. They just come. I mean, I don't know. I was just sitting here thinking, what do you guys know about tourism plans? So that's just sort of an aside, just for your back burner. And I want to say, without directly addressing anyone, to slip in a little snide remark about, I know some people view a gravel parking lot as a treasure. That has nothing to do with the discussion. Point of order. It's a gravel parking lot indeed. There are lengthy plans all through 2014 to pave it. So anyone who says was
If you
never.
could focus on the agenda, Bill, please.
So I'm focusing on point of order. There are lengthy plans in 2014 to pave it. So anyone who says was
Focus
not
on-
intended
Julie,
to
if
be
you
a
could
parking
focus on the
lot
agenda, Bill, please.
is lying. But yeah, the agenda bit I'm focusing on is concern yourselves with getting people who know about tourism if you're going to develop a tourism plan, because I can't figure out which committee I would see that actually coming together in. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Anybody else? Wayne?
I know. Yeah, Wayne Russell, 8438 Meadowbrook Way Southeast. My concern is I really think Meadowbrook Farm should be funded, because every time I go by, I don't really care for the cannons for the Civil War reenactment, but it does bring an awful lot of people here. And also, every time I see the tents go up when they do that nights thing, whatever it is, with the horse track and everything between the city and North Bend, that field is full. You know, and you know darn well that both North Bend and the downtown businesses in Snoqualmie here have to do very much better when those events are going on. I would, since I live in Meadowbrook, I really would like to see a lot more of them, but it would be nice for revenues to the city, because that does really promote tourism. So I really think Meadowbrook Farm needs to be really considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yeah, Ms. Lingo.
This is just, I've heard some concern that the LTAC meetings are not being published when they are, so people can attend them. So I don't know if that can be remedied.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, council, back to further discussion. Councilmember Holloway.
I guess my logic on this, so I appreciate your point totally. My issue, though, is we approved $66,000 of other funding, and we didn't hold those pending a tourism plan. We took these two off. I don't believe we took them off for a tourism plan. We took them off to flesh out their applications. So I'm not sure that I have a clear path in my logic to actually hold them off for a tourism plan. I do think we need a tourism plan, and we ought to focus in on it. We ought to have further discussion and go for it. But in fairness, I'm not sure I can single these two out to hold for a tourism plan.
Councilmember Sumwell.
So I'm going to be honest. Some percentage of my stubbornness on this is we have talked about a tourism plan. Well, say I've been on council for about 21 months now, for every single month for those 21 months. And I'm guessing for 21 months before that and 21 months before that. First, Brad Toff was supposed to come up with it. Then he wasn't here anymore. Then I landed as the chair of the CDC for like 5 seconds. I didn't do anything, okay? If we keep funding this stuff, then we will never come up with a plan. So at some point, I mean, I don't want to go all government shutdown on this, but at some point, we have to say, you know what? Get in a room, put it on the agenda, and whether it's as an entire council or as a CDC, or we come up with funding to a citizen's point that none of us may be experts on tourism, although I have been to Europe. So we may not be the experts, but there are experts out there. And if we keep funding a physical location that may or may not make any sense whatsoever, right? This is not an indictment on the art gallery. They have done a good job of what we've asked them to do. It's just we have no idea whether what we're asking them to do is the right thing. It isn't even about getting tourists here. There's a big thing of water that goes over a cliff over here that gets people here all by itself. And we haven't done anything in more than a decade to bridge the gap, the geographical gap that we have from the waterfall to downtown and up to the ridge. And if we just keep checking boxes on having, and the big difference between this and the other things on item, this is our visitor center, okay? Those are the other events were designed to draw people in, okay? This is the, what do we do when they get here, okay? And if we keep just rubber stamping this stuff, we're never going to come up with a plan because there's always going to be something else more important. And I would suggest there are very few things more important than figuring out how we monetize the second most visited natural resource in the state of Washington. So, yeah, that's why I'm stubborn about this. I'm fine on the Meadowbrook Farm, fine, whatever, right? But I'm
sorry, I have to add or interject or respectfully disagree that we haven't done anything. I refer all of you, if you haven't, please go back and read the Roger Brooks Destination Development Plan. That was a very comprehensive sort of tourism plan that we worked on. It definitely needs to be updated, but there are strategic things Brian and Bob were around those days that they know we have actively worked on for over a decade to implement out of that plan some 55 or so different recommendations. So I don't accept that we haven't been doing anything on that.
Whether we did or didn't isn't a discussion at this moment.
Point well taken. Councilmember Ross.
So one of the requirements was to receive reports from the visitor center, so how many people, where they were visiting from, the number of people that were there. And so has any of the committees reviewed that information? We would like to know how effective, how many people actually attended it or go through there.
It's actually quite extensive, and that was one of the reasons why their original application was not acted on or recommended in October. So when they came back with an amended application, she not only had all that required information, she had it broken down between the 12-month and the peak so that you can compare a 2019 that was just Memorial Day to Labor Day. It was all positive, it's very detailed, and the committee had that for their action.
But do you know a number off the top of your head? I'm curious, do 5,000 people go in there, or 20,000, or 10?
I actually have it right here. If you give me a couple moments, I'll locate the most prominent number.
Well, Mark's looking up that. I do want to remind the council that
7,068.
And then from that number, she estimated the number of visitors for a modified 2019, which I believe is 5,000 something.
Due to the truncated year, or the
Memorial Day to Labor Day, so she has an estimate.
Yeah, part of a year versus an entire year. Council, you will have an opportunity tomorrow night with finalizing your goals and objectives process, and Thursday night too. We'll likely use it to again chew over this in more detail. I don't know that anybody's minds are being changed at this point on some of these amendments or this agenda bill, so would suggest maybe calling the question so we could move on.
Call a question.
All right, question has been called. At this point, I'll ask that everybody vote on all those in favor of calling the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, so back to the amendment to again, pull the funding for the visitor center off for at least 30 days for further review. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Bob, were you and I?
Yes.
Okay, so one nay. All right, so with that, we're back to the original motion with just now the Meadowbrook Farm funding. The other will be resolved over the next 30 days. Any further discussion on the remaining funding for the Meadowbrook Farm, the $3,900? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is carried. All right, with that, we will move on, or any other reports for the Community Development Committee?
Sort of growing out of community development is the relationship that we have with the tribe. And I met with the tribal representative last week, and he's looking for an opportunity to sort of give an update on on what the tribe is working on, what they're doing at our retreat. So the request is to get that on the agenda. Doesn't need an hour, but maybe it's 15 minutes, but it's just something to give them the opportunity to say, here's what's happening, this is what we've got our eyes on.
So why the retreat and not here, not at council?
That'd be all right.
It's time for an engagement, but I think it's an informational engagement and not discourse.
Right.
And I'd like to focus the retreat on discourse amongst us on particular items.
Good.
Right, we could perhaps put it as part of a...
No further report.
Thank you. With that, we move on to Finance Administration Committee. Moving back, ask for a motion to approve the warrants as stated in the agenda packet.
So moved.
Need a second, folks. I have a motion and a second to approve the warrants as stated in the agenda packet. Any discussion, or is any member of the public that would like to comment on the warrants prior to council discussion? Anna?
Anna Sotola, 7713 Center Boulevard Southeast. Not so much on these warrants, but I guess I was.
Anna, if you're going to comment, the
Yes,
opportunity
on
is to
these
comment on
warrants.
these
So
ones on this item. If it's not pertaining to this, then I'd ask you to not.
I guess my confusion is after attending the FNA meeting, I was not under the impression that the new ordinance passed and how these warrants are now approved and the signing off on them. I'm not sure how that
Anna, perhaps
took
we could take that
place.
offline,
Great,
because
thank
we
you.
can't answer questions anyway. It's just a time to listen. All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this, any of the warrants? All right, with that, back to council for discussion. Councilmember Shepherd.
So they've changed the process of how they want to approve warrants. And one of the things that I noticed in the document that they provide, instead of bringing all of the stacks of warrants with all the supporting documentation to the FNA meeting, they are bringing it in one document that's put together by the finance director. And one statement that he puts in there is that these things have been reviewed with best financial practices. Anyway, it says that everything is kosher, and it's not kosher because we have the Clark-Nuber report says that we have some internal control issues, and this statement just totally ignores the fact that that's going on. And then in addition to that, the audit report that came back, they said that we need to have more separation, like Jerry was the one who signed off on approving all of the payments. And I don't know whether he is separate enough from who is putting together all of the documents for the warrants.
What?
Councilmember Holloway.
I guess point of order. There was the finance officer's report as provided to FNA. There was also the warrant packages, which were brought in on a cart. So there was opportunity to go through all that material. There was discussion of the mechanics of the new procedure we have in place, and that will happen with every new procedure. My question to my fellow council members are there specific questions on specific warrants that we need to review tonight? The Clark-Newborg and actions to follow are ongoing activities, but aren't initiated or enacted by these warrants in and of themselves. So I ask for questions on the warrants.
I think there was an objection in there that otherwise it wasn't germane to discussion. I'll sustain that. I ask that any discussion be focused strictly on, as the Councilmember Holloway articulated, on the warrants themselves. We've already had ad nauseum debates about the process itself, and if the council wants to put that as a separate discussion item, we could do that. But for the purpose of this agenda bill item, it's about a focus on discussion on these warrants. Are there any questions or discussion pertaining to these specific warrants? Councilmember Shepherd.
So again, our current process does not allow me to ask questions that are audit-type questions, and so I will continue to not approve warrants until I can ask questions and get answers.
Okay, any further discussion, Council? Councilmember Summerall?
So just to refresh my memory on this stuff, because I try and not think about FNA as much as possible. These are checks that have been cut for services rendered, right? So there might be an objection to the process, which I get. Maybe we can even talk about the retreat. Try and make that a 3-day thing if we can. And then there's the issue of, were services rendered? Whether you agreed with the services, whether you liked how much was spent on them, was the service as contracted rendered, and then should they be paid?
Right.
Isn't that what approving the warrants means?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, just to clarify for my fellow council members, my observation is we appear to have followed our ordinance exactly as it's required to be followed, which is that all of these specific warrants were made available to all council members for the 48-hour period prior to the F&A committee meeting. They were certainly available to me. I reviewed a very few of them that I felt was necessary. The F&A committee did ask whether there were any council member comments about any or questions about any of those specific warrants.
And the F&A committee does serve as the auditing committee. Yeah.
Which is specified in our ordinance.
Right.
Actually, we have an auditing officer, but the F&A committee followed the requirement of that ordinance, did ask if there were any council member comments, and none of us had any. So my observation is that there absolutely was a process for review of these. I think the non-germane comments about questions that could be asked that are not about whether to approve warrants, but maybe about some of our process, I think that's a good conversation that should be taken up in our by this body at whatever time is appropriate, but I don't think it's relevant to these. We did follow our process. In fact, we kind of double-checked ourselves at the F&A committee meeting to be sure that we had followed that process. So I just want to point out that we did.
Councilmember Shepherd.
So our process that we have put into municipal code is inconsistent with what the recommendations the state auditor's office has made. They tell us that we should be reviewing and asking questions about all of our finances, and we should be able to get those answers. And when you go to the meetings of other cities and other council members, they have an open door policy where I would be able to talk to the finance director, ask a question, and get an answer. And I cannot do that here in Snoqualmie.
Council, we take up warrants 2 times a month, basically 24 times a year. Since some members of the council were elected last year, I think this is the 25th time that we're now having the same debate. I would encourage someone to perhaps call the question.
Call the question.
Second.
All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, so back to the agenda and approval of the warrants. All those in favor of approving the warrants as stated in the agenda packet?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, now we, and again, are pulling one of the consent agenda items off. Agenda Bill 19003, position descriptions for the Assistant City Attorney and the CIP Manager Contract Administrator.
All right. The legislative body, council, is responsible for defining the powers, functions, duties of officers and employees of the city, including approving position descriptions. In the 2019-2020 biennial budget, several positions were added, including the Assistant City Attorney and the CIP Manager/Contract Administrator. For the next step is for each position description to be reviewed and approved by the City Council. Motion to approve the position descriptions for the Assistant City Attorney and the CIP Manager/Contract Administrator. May I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19003 as stated by Councilmember Hall. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this agenda bill prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, discussion, council? Or questions? Councilmember Shepherd.
So I still disagree that we should have a second city attorney. And this is why.
Call the question. Point of order, sorry, that's what I meant.
Question's been called.
We're not here debating something that we've already decided on. We approved it in the budget. So this is the point where my predecessor.
Councilmember Sundell has a point of order. The question's been called, so I'm going to cut off further conversation. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, the question's been called. So back to the original motion on, Agenda Bill 19003. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, with that, is there any other report for the F&A committee?
No further report.
Public Safety Committee, any further report?
I have good news. So the fire department has been working on the Center for Public Safety accreditation process for over at least the past year and a half. And part of this process was 252 performance indicators, which included creating documentation and implementing processes. And some of the documents are like 100 pagers, right? such as the standards of coverage and their 5-year strategic plan. And they completed all of these. And last week had the peer assessment team come in. And the peer assessment team is part of the accreditation process that verifies and validates all the documents and the processes. And on January 10th, they had the final meeting, and the peer assessment team stated that they're going to recommend our fire department for accreditation. So the next step is to go to Anaheim and review the documents with the commission down there. But this is significant. So there's 32,000 fire departments in the United States. 280 of them are accredited. And we would be probably the smallest fire department. And also, we would be, in Washington State, the only one that is, has career, let's see, the staff is career as well as volunteers. So we have a combination of both. So we're very proud of you and congratulations.
Well, thank you for that. Really, it was a team effort, and we haven't gotten over the hurdle yet. We do have the one final step to go through, which is the commission hearing. There's videos online if you want to see what those are like. That's where the commission, which is made up of, I think, of 13 members, review all the documents that we've submitted. And then our peer team leader, Will Gray out of Pueblo, Colorado, will be there to defend their review, site review, and then we'll be there to defend our documents, and then that will be the final step. But right now it looks very positive. It was a team effort. You were all part of the team effort. You supported the effort from the strategic planning through our adopting our standards of coverage and recognizing that. The mayor and Bob have certainly been supportive of this entire program. And it wasn't just us. HR was involved with this. Finance was involved with this. And our Public Works Department with our fleet and facilities was involved with this. They go through the organization with a fine-tooth comb, and they look to make sure that what we said in our documents we are actually performing, and that was pretty seamless. So they had about 15 or 20 recommendations that they're going to put in a report for us as we move forward. And if we do become successfully accredited, then that will be for 5 years, and we'll continue to update that as we move forward. So I'm certainly glad to be part of that effort and be the fire chief of the organization, but at the end of the day, it was everybody in the fire department, you all, the mayor and Bob, that have actually been part of this entire process. So we're proud of it.
Okay.
Should be.
Nice job.
Chief, is now an appropriate time to speak to this first opportunity, I think, to speak to the other exciting development in the fire department of late, or did you want to?
This is the one we really want to hear about.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually going to bring her tonight, but she's getting some medication for some medical things. So once she's up to full speed, we'll have her here. And for anybody who wants to see her, come by the fire station. I know she's met some of the council members. She's come to the public safety meeting. She was actually at our out briefing of our peer assessment team. There was a lot of stress in the room, so she was making her rounds around the tables as we went. But yeah, Phoebe arrived last month. In the department, there's been some adjustments that we've been making internally for her arrival. She's training us and we're training her at the same time. But she's a great dog. We haven't even, I believe, scratched the surface of what she's going to do for the organization. Yeah. She's gonna, yeah. Guess I gotta watch my puns. We haven't even scratched the surface of what she's going to do for the organization and also what she's going to do from just a community involvement perspective. Everybody we run into when we're out with her, certainly they want to stop and talk with the dog and pet the dog and see her. So she's a great addition, and we're looking forward to bringing her here for introduction. We hope to do that in the very near future. So it's a great program so far.
Well, 2 points of very good news, Chief, and especially for the accreditation. That's really wildly good news. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Good
Mayor,
work.
if I could just say, my observation is that the accreditation is we're wildly successful. You have to understand the impact of this. Most departments don't even go after accreditation because they know they can't gain that. They don't even want to go through the process. Our folks, Mark got here, obviously police and others are going to be next in line to do these things, but this is going to be the model, if you will, for the other departments. And you should be incredibly amazed by this, because the fact you go through this and only out of the dozens of things they had to look at, only 15 recommendations. I know that Mark and his staff are already working on most of those, and they'll be able to tell the accreditation group down in Anaheim in 2 months that we've got those pretty much accomplished. I think which speaks really highly about obviously the team here, but also of the group that the peer review. They know that we're going to get these things done and have them prepared, so there won't be any question whatsoever. that they do deserve this, and it's going to impact the community in a very positive way as well with this, with our fire rating for the service, I believe, and
which affects insurance rates too.
Yeah, there's a small piece on the insurance rating, but everything we did in that we're doing in that program translates to higher levels of service. These are the 1% of the organizations. It's actually less than 1% if you do the math of the 259 accredited agencies and the 32,000 fire departments. Everything we're doing in there, we're saying we're actually in the top 1% of the organizations out there, which we can't do that alone. In fact, one of the comments they made was that you guys are providing metropolitan levels of service, and what you don't provide locally, you actually get from other agencies. That's actually one of our value statements in our documents in our fire station. That's one of the values we adopted, that's the level of service we're going to provide. So with the help of Falls City, with the help of Eastside, with the help of Redmond and Bellevue, that's how we get those services here, and it's a great way to do it. And we may end up being even a model for them to look at for smaller agencies, to try to get more smaller agencies into the accreditation process, so we'll see.
They also made a very strong point about the fact that those partnerships are out there, but all the other partnerships, the city-to-city partnerships, all those things combined, they were really impressed at the level of partnerships that were very positive, that people willingly got into these things. They don't see that a lot, and they were, I think, overwhelmed by it, frankly.
Well, and they were very impressed with the strong partnership within the departments of the city themselves. They say they often see a lot more factions and infighting, and they were very impressed with how seamlessly the departments worked with each other, and the fire department, which was critical in a lot of overlap in those agencies. I credit Bob for a lot of efforts in helping instill that culture when he came on board as city administrator years ago too. But again, great work, Chief, and congratulations. It's exciting for all of you. All of us.
We have one other item.
Yes, Councilman.
This is like a public service announcement. So there's call if you can, text if you can't. So King County now has where you can text to 911, and this they prefer those that are those that would use it would be deaf, hard of hearing, speech impaired, or if anyone is unable or is in an unsafe situation that they need to be quiet, then then you can text. But they can't. When you're texting, it doesn't accept pictures or videos or emojis. And the texting, it does not get higher priority than your calls. And so they're also stating that it could be a little bit slower than if you called in because you're going to be texting back and forth and trying to get the information. But it's just to let everyone know that texting 911 is now available in King County. So.
Thank you, Councilman Ross. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, Councilmember Shepherd?
So
you had a question about public safety?
About the 911.
Oh, yeah.
So do you key in 911 when you do your texting?
Councilmember Shepherd, I'm sorry, if you could use your microphone, please.
Oh, do you key in 911 when you're texting?
Yes.
Okay.
This is also, if I could just add on, it's highly useful out in this area where you do get some dropped coverages on cell phone, but texting is obviously, for some reason, it's on a different frequency, and it does get through, whereas some calls may not.
Right.
Especially out in the mountains, in the woods.
Okay, with that, we're moving on to Committee of the Whole. You can see the staff reports are written the first meeting of the month. However, at this time, is any other questions from the staff? Bob?
I have several for council. I want to start out with just reiterating, tomorrow night, your goals and objectives, Andrew Ballard will be back at 6 p.m. For Tuesday, tomorrow night, and if necessary, Thursday night. He really wants to get council to finish up on prioritizing the objectives you've already laid out for each of the goals. The council retreat.
Before you go to that,
yes.
Is there an opportunity if tomorrow night we get to 6 to 8 o'clock and we look like we see the horizon? I mean, can we just elect to go to 9 o'clock and get her done and not come back Thursday?
That'd be great.
Yeah, good.
I think all staff would agree with that as well. One night would be awesome. Thank you. Yes, so it's up to council to extend the meeting, though. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my understanding is we're all on for tomorrow. I did hear from Councilmember Lassay. I assume you all know he's celebrating his anniversary tonight, but I did hear from him that he cannot make Thursday, and he's out of town, and
which is motivation to get it all done.
Motivation to, I think, yes, to try and do what whomever just suggested we try and get it done in one night. But I and maybe we deal with this tomorrow night, but I know he's hoping that if we do go beyond Tuesday, that maybe that could be onto a day that he can make, but maybe we could just see how we are tomorrow night. He could speak for himself.
Fine. Yeah, my objective is to try to get council to complete these before you get to your retreat, which is the next item, which is I met with Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and Mayor Larson last week, went through a number of topics that have been some that carried over from last year, that didn't make the agenda from last year, and as well as others that came forward this year. But the Mayor Pro Tem tentatively agreed on the topics. I want to express that the second day will be your CIP, the capital budget, the community center discussion, as well as looking at potential revenue enhancements going forth. This will be more like an icebreaker for council to consider that as well, but it looks like a full day. We'll have a facilitator for that. And then on February 8th, which is a Friday, you'll be talking about roles of council, the executive, legislative, executive type stuff, governance issues, things that I think need to be taken up with council, and that's what the Mayor Pro Tem agreed to. It'll be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. both days as necessary. It'll be here in Snoqualmie. It's the club at Snoqualmie Ridge. It's open to the public to observe, and the notice of the retreat will be published. The third thing I want to mention is that the state auditor came in for their exit conference for the 2017 audit. I think they came in, was it late December? I would characterize it as a clean audit. I've been through dozens of these in my career. It was, I expressed it was fairly routine. On the other hand, though, I think there were some other issues that were discussed, and perhaps the council was invited to participate in this exit conference, and perhaps one of them would like to comment further about what their experience was.
Councilmember Shepherd.
So I think that the state auditor definitely characterized it as a clean audit. However, there were some things that they identified that need to be worked on. And I would like to hear more discussion about those items and what our next steps will be on. There's just some concerning things. We also have another audit for 2017 coming up. Is that right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Another kind of audit. This was for financial reporting.
Oh, okay. I'll let the finance director speak on it.
There were a couple hotline complaints that were given from the public. They were going to be weaved into the actual 2018 audit. And so that's the performance audit piece.
Right.
That'll be weaved into 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of anything from
practice.
2017. Okay, thank you for clarifying. All right.
And just to clarify to the city council, there were no findings on the audit. It was a clean audit. Those were called exit suggestions that were given to us, and many of the suggestions fall into what we're working on with the Clark Newberg report, and we're actually going to be doing quarterly progress reports to F&A starting very soon.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, I attended the exit conference, and I just wanted to, for the benefit of my fellow council members as well as for citizens who might be interested, as you all are aware, I'm a CPA and spent most of my life as an auditor, auditing financial statements. In fact, anyway, the thing to understand about this audit is that it was an unqualified opinion on our financial statements under our state prescribed method of accounting. That's the key thing. When people say a clean audit, that's what they mean. It's an unqualified opinion, meaning there's no qualifications. It's correct, except. There's no qualifications. It's unqualified. That's exactly what you strive for. That's the best possible outcome on a financial statement audit. As part of doing an audit, there is, if you have an audit of federal grants, which we did not have, there's a category of things called findings. We didn't even have such an audit. We didn't have any findings. There's another category of things that an auditor will note when they're doing their audit, which is what auditors call deficiencies in internal control. Sounds very fancy, big words, deficiencies. It just means they observe something in how our financial systems are operating that could be better. When they see that, they then categorize the degree of severity that they attach to those observations that they've had, those deficiencies that they've observed. They can either be a material weakness in internal controls. That's not a good thing. That means our system of controls could allow material errors through and we wouldn't know it. That's paraphrased, but that's what it means. We didn't have any of those. The next category down is significant deficiencies. I'll paraphrase for you, doesn't rise to that level of concern, but it's more than just an observation of a deficiency. We didn't have any of those either. I have struggled to think if I've ever had an audit that I participated in that didn't observe some deficiencies. What happens is that you've got an outside entity coming in and looking with outsiders' eyes at everything you do, or many of the things that you do, and they'll observe, hey, this over here, you know, something immaterial could slip through there. You might strengthen that to stop that or to detect it on a more timely basis than what you might do now. Those are the kind of observations that are they're just a fantastic value add from the state auditor. It's a little nugget of advice for us, and we should welcome them. They're very routine, and we had several of those, not a large number. I've had audits where I've issued dozens of those. I think we had 5 that really fell into 3 categories. So those are fantastic advice. I've heard at F&A committee the kind of response that I would expect to hear as a council member from the administration, which is a sense that they take those seriously and that they're going to go to work on those, and that we can expect to hear some reporting back from them in the coming months as they resolve those. That sounds like the kind of response that I would expect to hear. So I would just say my observation was I was very pleased by what I heard, unqualified opinion, a very few deficiencies which management appears to be committed to solving. I was very pleased with what I heard, and I think we all should be very proud of the outcome of that audit.
Okay. Councilmember Shepherd.
So I was there for the exit audit or exit conference, or whatever you want to call it. And pretty much there was, the auditor said, this is good news, this is good news. And then we have a couple of housekeeping items. The things that were listed in the housekeeping items, I felt were probably worrisome. And so I don't know that I would consider them benign. I would like to see more follow-up on those items and find out, you know, exactly how much money we've put set aside for retirement accounts to make sure that we've got a consistent number in the state system versus what we've most recently reported to the system. I know that other cities have had a really big problem when they don't have those things, enough money set aside for those retirement systems. So that's one of the issues that I would really like to get a handle on.
Mayor, I'm not going to have staff respond to these tonight.
Yeah, I didn't.
That one, I just wanted to clarify.
This was just intended to be a quick report, folks, not to launch into discussion on auditing.
If council wants to submit questions, that'd be great. Please do so, and we'll answer those. But I'm not going to be taking questions tonight on this particular audit.
Yeah.
In the exit conference.
Let's try and wrap this up with you, Councilmember Ross.
So I also attended, and as we already stated, there was no findings, no management letter, and there's just some minor exit recommendations. And as was pointed out during the audit, this was before our finance director, Hamoud, joined us, so he was not here in 2017. And also the Clark-Newber report addresses all of these teeny tiny issues. And I know that we'll be getting further information regarding it later on. But overall, it was, you know, as part of our finance department, they did a great job.
Mayor, if I could just say one more thing. There's several staff I need to recognize, obviously. Jerry Knutson, I believe, was the primary person. He's just an unsung hero, frankly. He's a fairly unassuming, modest person, but he's back there. He's our senior accountant, and he does the vast majority of this work with the state auditor's office. So I want to thank him publicly.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I concur. Councilmember Ross, I think noteworthy for the public to be aware, too, that your professional background in terms of accounting or finance, do you note that very quickly, if you could?
Well, I have a master's of an MBA. I think you confuse me sometimes. You think I have a CPA, but I don't have a CPA.
Oh, okay.
But I did do auditing for PACCAR in their internal audit department.
Right. You know numbers anyway.
Yes, I do.
You've dealt with spreadsheets. Yeah, thank you. I think that's good for the public to know. Okay. I don't think there's anything else on that item. Any other, I don't know if there's any other items for the committee of the whole. I want to talk about the I-90 SR18 thing. We'll get to that, but I'm going to kick it to the Mayor Pro Tem now to do committee assignments and appointments.
Okay. And
Liaison and committees and whatnot.
Jody, if you can bring that up. Let me level set on expectations. So tonight, I did not want to presuppose your election of Mayor Pro Tem, nor did I want to presuppose your decision on committee timing, which both can have effect on who gets assigned to what committees and commissions. So I will bring that back next council. I want to have some discussion interim if people have strong feelings of, I want my time on this committee or commission, okay? So tonight I would like us just to focus on, we have a scheduling issue with primarily with our committees, and it gets reflected into our commissions. I would like to discuss a couple alternatives, and you have printouts in regards to those. I apologize for the colors. It was not puke green and puke yellow on my printer, but that's what we got. The first page you'll see is really just the schedule we've got going currently. And what you'll notice, particularly on the non-council Monday nights, we have public safety at the fire station at 4 o'clock, Parks and Public Works at 5 o'clock, Community Development at 6 o'clock, and then the Planning Commission at 7. If a council member was so inclined, it is very difficult for somebody to make all those meetings. Okay, and we've kind of set it up so at least there's the opportunity for all of us to go to all the meetings. So Monday night we need to do something. There has been discussion about moving F&A till Wednesday. I think that kind of puts undue stress on F&A and staff, particularly for holiday weeks. That'll push F&A out to Thursday, and to get the notice out by Friday for the following council just really puts us in a bind. Not to mention Wednesday is often external meetings that we have in effect. So taking that into effect, I really have two alternates for you. One is to move community development to Tuesday at 5 and move F&A to occur Tuesday at 7. That gives each of those meetings 2 hours. It does move community development. If there's issues flowing from that to F&A, that's pretty tight right there. I didn't do anything with public safety. I felt an hour is probably sufficient for that meeting, and therefore we can get more likely to the other meetings if we have to. Okay, so I left that one alone. Okay, so that's do the least harm. Alternate 2, which I tell you the truth is actually the one I would favor, is to move community development to be 7 o'clock Monday nights, and to move planning commission to Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. That retains the kind of flow from community development to planning commission. It does put a little burden on planning commission in that we're moving them to Tuesday. I understand they really love Monday, but there's give and take in this. And then the remainder of the schedule I left alone.
Well, Mark Hoffman has observed, I think, that we might lose half the commission if that's the case, too. So might be a bit of turnover if we move the night.
From Monday.
Sorry, Mayor Braham.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead, Martin.
The last time they were polled, I believe 2, possibly 3 said that when they signed up, Monday night was the gig and that they would have to drastically adjust their family schedules and didn't think they could.
I'm going to assume this is a council discussion, so
Yes.
if there's a hand raised, Mayor Pro Tem, why don't you go ahead and call him who you want?
So this is the first time I haven't heard of moving Public Works to Tuesday. When we even talked about this on Monday, last Monday, one of the options being moving Public Works and Parks to the Tuesday slot, which again, I'm personally strongly in favor of, but I'm one of those 3. The challenge when we mess with the commissions is we're talking more than 3 people, right? When we move a committee, we're talking 3 people, right? We can get in a room and say, yeah, that works for us, right? Whereas now you're talking a commission that's 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many there are. 7 people that you're asking who, I know we sort of volunteer, but who volunteer. And so I would like us to see us maybe move committees, or sorry, committees than commissions.
So would you suggest then taking alternate one and instead of moving community development to Tuesday, move public works to Tuesday?
Correct.
Basically swap those around? How does the rest of the council feel about that?
Good.
And I think you and Matt we could make that work when we talked about it at the committee.
Yeah, I guess the only concern in the back of my head was there's things that come out of public works, but you can say that go into planning commission, but you can also say that probably more so for community development, so I have no objection to your proposal.
Do you mean F&A or planning commission? You said planning.
I said planning commission. All of the committees go into F&A. So F&A has to be tail end Charlie. It's got to be the last meeting, otherwise you're just out of sequence.
Right.
Now, would staff have any grief of moving F&A to be from 7 to 9 on Tuesday?
From 5 to 7?
From 5 to have
30.
Have community development at 5 and F&A at 7 on Tuesday.
7 to 8:30ish, hour and a half for each meeting.
I want to accommodate the council.
We're going to do what the council wants.
Yeah, and I don't know why that could
I just
even.
want you happy while you're there, that's all I mean.
That could
I
even
will
start at
direct them to be
6:30. I mean, have we needed more than 90 minutes before in Parks and Public Works? And not since I've been chair.
Well, you're much more efficient than the past.
Well, and I actually take public comment. So, and we still get it all in. I mean, if you felt like 9 o'clock was too long to keep staff, even moving that back from 6:30 to 8 or 8:30 would be better.
Okay,
All I'm saying is we need 90 minutes.
Let me restate, the proposal is to have Public Works from 5 to 6:30.
Yes.
On Tuesday evening, and have F&A from 6:30 to 8.
That'd be much better.
Yeah.
Are any objections to that?
No, community development, we're just shackled with an hour. If we had an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half, that'd be great for us.
Now you have 2.
I'm telling you, we don't need to, and you could either move F&A up to 6:30 rather than 7.
No, what the proposal on the table would put community development from 5 o'clock to 7 is the window you've got, however you much.
On Monday.
On Monday night. Following that will be planning commission at 7.
We can do that, that's fine, but we don't need that much. I'm just saying that you could actually start F&A earlier if you wanted to, by a half an hour.
No, I've moved, with his proposal, we've moved Parks and Public Works to Tuesday night with F&A. Community Development remains Monday night.
And you do need 2 hours because you owe us a tourism plan.
You rolled it, it took him a while.
You stole my statement, yeah. Get the tourist plan done.
So again, I believe the current proposal on the table is public safety at 4 o'clock at the fire station.
On Monday.
On Monday.
Right.
I'm going to go down Monday. Community development at 5 o'clock Monday night in these chambers. And then 7 o'clock will be the planning commission in these chambers. Tuesday night would be Parks and Public Works at 5 o'clock to 6:30, these chambers. F&A to go from 6:30 to 8 Tuesday night in these chambers. I would note that gives you an opportunity. You may now have all the committee meetings in these chambers if you so choose. And at least the public will know when we're meeting, we're here.
Good.
So I'm wondering
Not
on-
safety, public safety.
I'm wondering,
public
yeah, we
safety.
always have fire
Yeah, you could
station.
have 4.
But if,
Public safety would have to.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah.
On the community development, so public safety, we start at 4 and we go till 5, 5:15, something like that. But then it also takes us time to get here if we want to sit and go to the parks and, actually, it could be community development meeting. So can that possibly start at 5:30 and then you guys go to 7?
Community development, are you okay with just 90 minutes?
Yeah.
Because he's in my
Once we get a plan.
public safety.
Okay. So let's do, so to restate Monday, public safety at 4 o'clock, community development at 5:30 to 7 o'clock, planning commission.
Actually, it would work better if we moved public safety to this building, so we wouldn't have to be moving around.
Yeah, there's no commute.
That's true. But we like hanging out at the fire station or the police station.
Don't bring the dog over.
You guys could all meet at the fire station, too. Just throwing it out there.
That's old news, Mark. That was a long time ago.
We could just move City Hall over there.
So are we good with that proposal?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll work with Jody and we'll get this in. And for next week, let me ask the question then. For next week, do you want to move to this new schedule, or you want to wait for the assignments and do the new schedule and assignments all at once in 2 weeks?
Start in February.
That wasn't the question.
Well, it's the answer, because if we're talking about doing this next, if we need to make sure we have all the assignments, then it would be February.
It'll be
before this would
February, you're right.
It happens every once in a while.
Yes, sir.
The sooner we get more than 60 minutes for community development, the better. I would like to implement it 10 minutes from now, all time forward.
Jody, is there any issue with implementing for next week? Nope. All right.
We do have the Wednesday issue. SVGA is Wednesday night at 6:30. And so.
We have the holiday next week.
Right.
Monday's a holiday.
Monday's a holiday? Oh.
Monday's a holiday. So everything's moving to Tuesday and Wednesday, and SVGA is at 6:30 in Carnation.
Right.
And so. if
That's
we
just this week. That's a one-time problem, though, right?
Right. But that's next week. So if you're talking about moving Parks and Public Works to that, or you're not going to go to?
Well, F&A will be at 6:30.
At the same time
Right,
as
so we're
SVGA.
saying
Big conflict.
move it earlier.
Yeah.
Can Public Works meet at 4?
I have to be at SVG. I'm the president this year, so.
Does that mean you won't be at our committee meeting then?
Correct.
Sweet. Let's
I think you guys will
keep
do
it
fine.
then.
All the mischief will occur then, yeah.
I'm not sure what we'll do, how we'll stay in line without you, Mayor.
I'm sure you'll do fine.
Yeah, we can move that, we can try to move that ahead an hour, have public, instead of 5 o'clock, have Public Works at 4, F&A at 5:30.
This is a one-off problem, right?
It's a one-off problem.
Then let's just wait till February. I understand what Jim's saying, but just for the sake of simplicity, right? And you know what? If Jim needs the 90 minutes next week, we'll work with Dan. No, then that's changing it.
Sean, your tourism plan needs the 90 minutes next week.
It's going to be a plan as soon as it stops becoming my plan.
Okay, guys, what do you want, so we can either enact this and move the Tuesday meetings ahead an hour, or we can wait and do it in February. What do you want to do?
Sooner is better.
So you're talking about having F&A at 5:30,
Have F&A at 5:30,
and anyone going to SVGA needs to leave at 6.
so you get to catch the first half hour of F&A. And maybe we'll be done. Either that, or for next week, we have to move it to Thursday night, and I'm reluctant to do that to Jody.
It would make the agenda getting posted too pretty late.
You could also just move the committee meetings to 4 and 5 o'clock and just get your business done and get out of here by 6 o'clock for the SVGA. I think there's 2 of the committee members attending SVGA next week. Keep it an hour for.
Okay, let's do that. Let's
Yeah,
enact
how many
this,
were-
but for next week, community development, or Public Works will be Tuesday at 4 o'clock. F&A will be Tuesday at 5 o'clock.
Wednesday.
With the objective to get out.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes, I'm sorry, because of the holiday.
Yes. We got it.
Okay? And that was that discussion for this week. I will bring liaison and committee assignments next meeting.
Someone put this in writing tomorrow.
Jody will.
Yeah.
She's got it.
Good, you'll send that back out or redistribute to the council, or check with the mayor pro tem and then distribute it once you have the
got
mayor
it.
pro tem's confirmation. Okay. All right, Mayor pro tem, any further work tonight on this?
I believe that was it for night. We can go on to the I-90 discussion.
All right. So, as the council knows, I sent out an email, or received a phone call early Friday from Senator Mullet regarding our, we've been pressing on this issue of not waiting around for 4 or 5 years for the interchange to be complete before we finally receive the benefits to relieve the congestion. We've been pressing for some sort of designated on-ramp throughout the construction process to alleviate some of that congestion, particularly in the mornings getting on I-90 westbound. So WASDOT got back to Senator Mullet about that, so they provided more detailed cost estimates on providing the access lane during construction, starting as soon as this summer, where they could start that work as soon as summer, using the return access road from the way station. So a couple of the items on that would be a temporary access lane parkway to westbound I-90 for morning commutes could be constructed in summer of 2019 using the way station return road. The cost estimate is approximately $1.2 million. Due to the fact that this would, in their estimation, be a throwaway short-term investment, they would, WASDOT does not support this project being funded from the $150 million, so this is a question for Senator Mullet going after additional monies in the capital fund. But WASDOT guarantees that it would be useful through 2021, but it is unclear if it would survive through the 2021-23 construction period, and it would definitely be removed by the end of construction. Therefore, it's only guaranteed to have a useful life of at least 2 years, maybe up to 4 if they can figure it out. And entirely unclear, so they weren't supportive of that it could be a permanent solution. I'll get back to that in a second. Senator Mullet is not in a position, or doesn't feel he's in a position to request the full $1.2 million as a separate capital appropriation, and estimates it would probably have to be about a 50-50 cost split between the city, or at least have a 50-50% match to show the city is invested in that kind of a sort of throwaway cost. And so he needs to know if we're willing to commit those kind of dollars to a sort of a temporary project. Councilor Summerall, I think I'm anticipating your question is, why can't this be permanent?
That's one of them, but yeah.
So I didn't chase down Senator Mullet to get an answer to that question. I guess all I would need from the council is an answer to 2 questions. One is, would we be willing to commit these kind of funds to a project that would only have a value of about 2 years? And of course, there's significant opportunity cost of other things, grinds and overlays and other capital projects that this money would not be used for. Do you deem this to be enough benefit for the community for what could be as little as a 2-year
Well, can't we
benefit?
Can't we stipulate 4?
They haven't given commitments that they think they can make it work. There's a lot of moving parts in the project as the roundabouts or the ends are built, there's the crossover lanes. There's a lot of those access points that are going to move around during the months or years of the construction, depending on the staging and how traffic flows through what's being constructed on, how they create temporary lanes. So I haven't seen the details other than a phone call with them, so I couldn't get the benefit of knowing what their rationale for why they thought this couldn't be usable. But let's assume for a moment you could stretch even 4 years out of it. Maybe it's 3 questions. Would you be willing to commit these kind of dollars that are throwaway for a 2-year benefit? Second question would be for a 4-year benefit. Or a third question would be if somehow we could work with them to convince them that it has value to leave it in permanently after the project's completed and would be used as a permanent designated lane for Snoqualmie residents versus those coming up 18 from the south. Would you think this is a good, worthwhile investment as a permanent benefit? So I think it'd be worth answering all 3 of those questions. Today was the first day of session for the legislature this year, so I'd like to get an answer back to Senator Mullet as soon as possible so he knows what he needs to go after.
Mayor, can I? Sorry, just to add, I think one reason for the uncertainty about the timing is that WashDOT's planning to have this constructed as a design-build project and not one where the project being the diverging diamond, the permanent solution. And so WashDOT may not have complete control over what parts of that get constructed when, and so that might mean that the temporary solution would be going away sooner rather than later, and they would not have control over it. I think that's part of what's going on here.
Councilmember Summerall and Councilmember Shepherd.
So I think this has potential to be obviously great news. I've wondered, what this tells me is they are shutting down the way station. That's essentially what they're saying, is they're shutting down the way station, at least for westbound traffic on I-18.
Yeah,
so that's great news.
There may be a breakthrough on the way station.
But second of all, so second question I have is, have you talked to Kathy? because I'm just wondering if there's any sort of, whether there's grant money or whether there's county money that could go to help.
King County
contribute.
Councilmember Kathy Lambert?
Yeah, so to where, yeah, sorry, Kathy Lambert, to where they could help us offset the $600,000. So obviously, the amount of time that it's useful directly impacts whether us/citizens would be willing to take $600,000 and dedicate that. And this is why I asked the question in the response to the email is, the Diverging Diamond interchange sounds like a really cool idea. I've driven through a few of them in the Salt Lake City area. They're really awesome, but they have a really awesome freeway system that we don't. So, but my challenge is we call it a permanent solution, but there's no such thing as a permanent solution in highways. And so there will be a point in time when that becomes sucky. And so the reason for my question
Public
about
works term, yeah.
that is a technical term. It's right up there with appurtenances. Yeah. So the reason for my question is I'd be 100% willing to support that if that became a permanent solution. And the reason I think the state would be interested in having that be a permanent solution is because, at least in the mornings, the lifetime of that diamond interchange would get dramatically longer if a permanent on-ramp from the ridge was that bypass. It would impact your interchange lighting in terms of the frequency with having to go red, green, yellow. I would think that they would do whatever they could to make that a permanent solution, in which I would be $600,000 for a 20 to 40 year solution is, to me, an absolute no-brainer. But anything short of permanent, I would want to get the temperature somehow of citizens who do that every day to see, would that be worth it? And here's the cost. Here's what maybe wouldn't happen because we contributed $600,000 to that. Now, the fact that it looks like WashDOT may repave the parkway for us, and that's millions of dollars we will not have to spend to do that ourselves, is maybe a rationale to take $600,000 out of streets, or maybe $300,000 of it comes out of streets, or whatever it is.
Or out of the reserves for the parkway, yeah.
Right. I just, 2 years, as much as I think that would be an awesome thing, it just seems too short to justify that kind of money.
Well, let's start with the easy or lower hanging fruit. Is there concurrence that, or a suggestion that there would be some strong support if we could at least prevail upon WashDOT to figure out a way to make this a more permanent solution? To your point, that would probably not only be permanent as part of this upgrade or project Divergent Diamond, but could outlast the Divergent Diamond if 20 years in the future they're needing to upgrade that with flyover ramps or something. Councilmember Shepherd, and then Councilmember Mayhew.
So I don't think anybody's going to have the answer to this, but if we put in this lane, will it preclude them doing something that would have been
Councilmember Shepherd, if you could get closer to the microphone.
A better design for the flyover, or what, the diamond, whatever it is?
The Divergent Diamond.
No, I'm just wondering, with budgets being so tight in the state, would they say, oh, well, it's better than it was, and they'll divert that money to somewhere else?
It's really dedicated.
It would not affect the interchange project at all, because like they're saying, their position is because it's the throwaway money, they would not support it being funded out of the $150 million that was budgeted for the interchange improvements. So it would be incumbent on Senator Mullet to pursue additional capital funds separate from the project to do that improvement, whether it be temporary or permanent. And to address Councilmember Sunwell's questions about Kathy Lambert, I feel like I would probably be inclined to wear a paper bag over my head to go make that request of her. She's got a $300 million county roads problem that has about $90 million of funding for it every year, and she's been drum beating on that for years. Mm-hmm. I could already predict what the answer would be if I came hat in hand asking for $600,000 for what could be a 2-year temporary fix.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
We did have that $1 million that one day, though.
We could put a park there. If we put a park there, maybe we can get the money.
Yeah. Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, so having observed some of the discussions on this, I would just say, first off, I think the representatives from the city have been doing a fantastic job of negotiating this. This is a very tough, far tougher situation than it appears to be, as I know many of my fellow council members are aware. I won't talk a whole lot about that, but other than to say it's very complex, and I think you guys have been doing a fantastic job. I would say that my observation is that there are some that, not here at the city, some involved in this decision who might like to see us balk at this. They might like to just have us go away on this topic, and so might like to see us think the number is too high, because then we'll just go away and they can do as they would like to do. So I'm a little bit mindful that there are some in this process that have that kind of thinking. Having said that, the way I thought, and maybe administration could kind of tell me if my numbers seem about right. Here's how I kind of thought about it: is 600,000. We have 6,500 households in the city. Is that, give or take, a reasonable number?
Probably closer to 5,000. Yeah.
Probably closer to 5,000. Okay. So in my mind, obviously, if it's 600,000 and there's 6,000 houses, that's $100 a house. So it sounds like at 5,000 houses, it can be a little bit more than that. But in the order of $100 a household. And so if it has a 4-year life, that's $25 a year per house. And that somehow our citizens are going to pay for that. Whether it's over the long term, however it comes out, it's real money. They're going to pay for it one way or another. So, but it's $25 a house if it's 4 years, and obviously if it only gets 2 years, it's $50 a house. My sense of the angst around this in our city is that my belief is that our citizens would say $25 a house for a 4-year. Why are we even talking about this? Heck yes, do it. $50, you know, maybe they wiggle a little, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, for any of you, by Tuesday morning they'll say spend it. My sense is this is just such an enormous inconvenience, such an enormous issue. Almost all of our residents go, there's only 3 ways out of the city, and one of the ways isn't the way they're going. So they almost all go out that one way every morning. Almost all of our residents work outside the city and they go out that funnel. And I think that they would very much like us to solve this if we could. And so I'd say I don't like the 2-year. That kind of makes me really, I hope, and I actually believe you can probably drive a better bargain than that, but my thought is drive the best bargain you can, and I think our citizens would want us to pony up on this. They would, this is just such an issue for them. That kind of amount of money, they'd say spend it. That's my thought.
You could always enact a temporary card tab fee for 2 or 3 years as well, or.
Well, there's that, and there's always, I was going to bring up the 0.5%, but I decided not to touch on that, so I'll let that go.
Oh, okay.
No, but in all seriousness, they're going to pay for it one way or another.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. I'm saying at that kind of amount per household, I think they tell us, do it.
Councilmember Holloway.
So I guess a couple of things. One, building a 4-year solution for $1.2 million, a 20-year solution might cost significantly more than that. So I'm leery of that, of going for a permanent solution. 2, I think this is really put in place that during construction, we are heavily impacted traffic-wise, and this is a way to alleviate the construction traffic jam. 3, I'm not sure I want to presuppose, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I don't want to presuppose what the final design should be. I want the traffic engineer and then hold him accountable for what that final design. So I guess I'm twisted to, I might be able to talk into a 4-year solution for $600,000, but I'm just looking for a commitment that there is maintained a comparable traffic alleviation mechanism for the life of that construction project. And then if at the end, whatever that is, comes out, great. But for the life of that project, we get some traffic alleviation for Snoqualmie, whether it's this lane permanently for 4 years, or they do something different in 2 years or whatever, let them decide.
Right, because it sounds like you're not real wild about the 2-year thing, which is what they're suggesting to Senator Mullet right now. The downside being everybody's used to a lot of backup, that's what they plan for now. Suddenly that's alleviated during 2 years of construction, and we spend $600,000.
kicked it
And then
down
it
the road
shuts
2
down
years.
again for another 2 years until the construction's complete. That probably gets people even more irritated than if you just.
I want the traffic alleviation for the 4 years, for the construction.
So your
of the
support
project.
would be contingent upon throughout the entire.
Takes them 2 years to fix
They
the
take the
pothole.
money, they commit to us that we will have traffic relief for construction for the duration of the project.
All right, knowing that, as Councilor Mayhew suggested, the 2-year thing might be a pretext for precisely to try to kill the option, but, yeah. Councilor Ross?
So I know that we had talked with them, or wrote them a letter about another option, which was, I think, strengthening the edge of the road.
The shoulders, yeah.
The shoulders of the road. And so, and that was like $2 million, right? That was another fix that would get our residents off the parkway quicker. So this is almost a bargain, right? 1.2 million compared to 2 million. Last week I sat in the traffic and I was all the way down to the elementary school. So you're going to have to, anyone commuting in the morning has to add at least 20 minutes to their commute just to get to the freeway. So I'm for doing this. So, and if we can keep it long-term, that would be great. I know.
Would you support even 2 years, knowing it could be given and then
I
pulled
think
back again for 2 years?
Yeah.
And the over-under on WashDOT finishing a project in 2 years?
Well, I'm just thinking, they're stating they would get it done by this summer, and I'm not seeing that either, so I think it's,
For the duration of the project.
yeah, the duration of the project would be good.
Councilor Jeans, and then I'll come back to Councilor Shepherd.
So at one end, 2 years sounds very unattractive. But I will say this, we spent a lot of time on our budget, and we spent $600,000 on roads and other public works types of things, so we don't have $600,000. We've already spent it. But we need to hear from Public Works regarding, I mean, this was news to me that we might get some help resurfacing the parkway, and that is a big, it ought to be a big ticket item that will help alleviate that it's either things that will come from elsewhere, the state, but more particularly those things that we have approved. Let's listen to Public Works talk about how important these things are, but can we put them off for 1 or 2 or 3 years? Or can we scale back some things and make it work? But otherwise, I'm very much in support of something that is on everybody's mind who lives in Snoqualmie.
Bob, it sounds like, just, again, I want clarification that I'm seeing that the majority of you are not real thrilled about the idea of creating an alleviation for 2 years and then taking it away and just frustrating everybody all the more that it all comes back for another 2 years during construction. So that option seems to be off the table, with the caveat that I think, I guess Councilmember Mayhew observed that you don't want to give them kind of that tool to do precisely that, just to kill. They kind of go like they're just going through the motions to entertain us and then use that as the pretext to kill it, which is probably their intent. So we'll push pretty hard on the 4-year. But it sounds like just pretty tepid support for just a temporary 2-year that goes away, and again, just creates more frustration. Councilmember Schipper, I'll come to you, and Councilmember Sunwell, but Robert, I know you wanted to speak to the.
I just want to say, if the council decides.
About, you guys are going to have extensive capital facilities or capital conversation during the retreat, and you're kind of going into this commitment. I'm sorry, the timing of it, before having the benefit of really looking at what are what are going to be the real opportunity costs? What are the things we're going to have to give up potentially to make this happen? You're giving up a grinding overlay that's going to last for 15 years or so versus this for 2. So
We will present options. If council wants to go this direction to look for 600,000, we'll present, I'll work with Dan, we'll present options to you, at least a few different options on how we would do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the resources are there. There's a significant fund balance and reserves you put aside, but there's going to be projects you obviously can't do if you do that instead. So, Councilmember Shepherd, Councilmember Sunwell, Councilmember Holloway.
So if we do this temporary fix, how quickly will they be able to install it?
The Councilmember or Senator Mullet was suggesting they could probably start getting into the ground as early as this summer.
And how soon will it be finished and ready to be used?
I assume within a month or two, a couple months.
Shouldn't take that long.
That pavement already supports semi-trucks. So it's really fixing the bend at the end.
Yeah, it's just putting a little connector at the end of it, right? And Senator Mullet and I want to press further as to why they think it can't be permanent. We suspect it's because they want to put the metering in and they don't want to separate the meters on two different access points. But investing in some permanent meters, a separate meter system is a whole lot cheaper than trying to pull out $1.2 million of value. So again, we need to probe into those details, and neither he nor I had the benefit of knowing some of the details that we could push back on. I think it would warrant another meeting with those officials. Councilmember Summerall.
So I want to come across as less tepid than I may have been. I think after listening to my fellow council members, this is approaching no-brainer status, and I would say...
even for 2 years?
I would say even for 2 years, and this is why. Because I fundamentally believe it won't be for just 2 years. I believe that they are throwing 2 years out there thinking that there's no way they'd go for it if it was 2 years. But I'd be willing to bet 25% of the people who take that route every day, if you had somebody out there that said, give me $5 and you can go to the front of the line, they would pay it every freaking day. Okay? Which is way more expensive than what Councilmember Mayhew suggested.
So you're
and so
tolling.
You don't tolling. So you don't get to 4 years without getting 2. Right? And in the history of WashDOT, name a project that's been on time. This project has already slipped a year, right? It takes them 2 years to fix a pothole. So I don't think there's any way it's only 2 years. And if we can have in the back of our minds that, we really, really want 4 years, but I think we have to be all in on this, because this is now that Mr. Mayhew, Councilmember Mayhew has done some math for me, and then as I have my meter maid, or what's a mail maid? Whatever that is. Could be a male or a woman, whatever. Taking $5 tolls, you would have a sellout. And so I think I came across as maybe skittish. I am all in, whether it's 2 years. I think we negotiate, and I think the city has a track record of negotiating well with Olympia and WashDOT. And so I have great faith that will go past 2 years, but we don't get 4 if we don't start with 2.
Okay. Any other clarification of tepidness? Councilmember Holloway?
Well, I guess I still want to go down the road a little bit in this game of chicken before I flinch. And I still recommend that, yes, it's $600,000, but it's traffic alleviation for the duration of the construction. How they make that solution, don't care. Traffic alleviation for the duration. The other point I want to make, although Dan is prime target, I don't think he's the only target that we should consider in pulling the $600,000. I think the books are open. Let's look and see what we got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Ross or Councilmember Jeans? Okay.
I'll be super brief. So to our CFO's, finance director's comment, there is absolutely money to get this done. We're going to have a conversation over the next 2 or 3 months on capital investments. It's millions of dollars. We just have to figure out where we want to put them. Is that at a community center? Is it at lights at the park? Is it the park, the enhanced park that we want to do over at Centennial? And there's going to be several $1 million that we discuss in the next 2 months, and it's all allocating where we want them to go to. So it's not about whether there's money. It's always about where you want to spend the money.
What's your priority?
Right? I'm done, believe it or not.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, it just says a very wise city finance director, one of the most respected in the state, says, you can do anything you want on the city council. You can do anything you want. You just can't do everything you want. So the point being, just to make the point, we have the cash to do this. Yes, it will mean we choose not to do something else, or not to do something else until later. But we have the ability to make this choice. It's a question of priorities.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna take this to Senator Mullet and say, go for it. Understanding that this might be a tough slog for him, he might have a lot of raised eyebrows when his fellow senators and others see he's looking for money for a 2-year.
Go for what?
The deal.
the match. Ask them to try and find $600,000 and.
For a 2-year solution, for a 4-year solution?
Yes.
That's his problem.
If I could just.
I mean, there's a risk. I mean, I'm hearing what I think is the majority council saying, we think it's a bluff, call the bluff, but you know that there's a risk that the bluff might be real and you end up with only 2-year improvement. But you're going to have to go all in and commit to pushing that hard before. Because even they're going to get squeamish if they throw $600,000.
I want to raise the bet. The bet is $600,000, but traffic alleviation for the duration of the project.
Believe me, I will be pushing 100% hard on that. Not just 4 years. I'm going to be pushing for beyond the completion of the project too. I think that kind of investment warrants something that's going to bring value to the community.
Yeah, but you can't, this temporary solution.
I know, yeah.
You can't sacrifice the good solution that's
Understand,
really
the first thing I'll be doing with Senator Mullet is trying to flesh out a timeline here. I mean, where are the drop dead dates in terms of what he needs for timing to try to get this money in the capital fund? I mean, he sits on the appropriations committee, so he's well positioned to go after it. But both he and I are going to be interested in having some conversations about WASDOT to press further on the details. Exactly why are they saying what can or cannot be done, and if we got to bring some engineers to that conversation to press harder on trying to get where I know you guys want to go, which is at the very least through a duration of the entire project and maybe beyond. That's obviously we're going to be pushing hard. Councilmember Shepherd, then Councilmember Mayhew.
So how reliable are they as far as keeping within their budget?
Oh, WASDOT is always on budget.
Well, I'm just wondering if this goes over budget, who's going to pay the
Oh,
bill?
on this? Okay. Well, okay, that's a good question. I'll press that question to Senator Mullet. Like who? Yeah, if it went over the 1.2, who would be holding the bag on it? Yeah.
I just want to make the point. If Mullet goes to state senate and gets 600,000 for us, there's a whole bunch of other pressure here. He can't sell all the things that we're saying. He's going to hear from his fellow senators. Yeah,
he'll be.
And you know, they're going to be pushing for the same thing we're pushing, and this is a complex negotiation. There may be some people that would like to see this just get killed because it just makes their life easier to plan this project without having to worry about keeping this lane running. But when Mullet's bringing state money, he's talking to senior people at WashDOT. I think we have to give the mayor room to work with this. I think he's totally on board with what you're saying, and just my observation of how the players here, we're giving him a strong hand. We're giving him a strong hand, and I think he'll play it well.
Councilmember Jeans and Councilmember Shepherd.
So the word from Mullet is wonderful, and I'm wondering whether our other two elected officials in Olympia can be of some assistance in this process also.
Yeah, Bill Ramos I was very excited and pleased to see that, like Jay Rodney, he got a seat on the Transportation Committee in the House. I haven't seen Lisa Callan's assignments yet, but I don't have any questions that Lisa and Bill would be very supportive of it. You know, they're going to follow Senator Mullet's lead on this, and I think be very supportive of it. And I played a role in organizing some of the cities all affected by this SR 18990 issue, but I was very pleased of late that Chamber of Commerce is down in Black Diamond, Covington, all that are extremely well organized on this issue, and I know when I bring it to them, they're going to help go down to Olympia and lobby on these issues as well. Because that designated access lane for us means it alleviates the congestion for that traffic coming up from the south as well, so it's going to be a benefit for them. So I'll certainly be working to get them on board, supporting that and putting pressure as well. Councilmember Shepherd?
So I guess I'm more concerned about the unpredictability of what the actual cost is going to be and who's going to be paying the bill, and so I would not support it because of that uncertainty about.
Clarify, your support is contingent upon a cap. In other words, if you were given assurances that the commitment from Snoqualmie would be no more than $600,000, then would you support it? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. But if there was no assurance that the cost could go beyond that, it could even double, then you have no interest to support it. Okay, that's great feedback. I suspect the rest of you would be interested in a similar sort of assurances or protections.
Yeah, I want limited exposure.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll convey that to Senator Mold as well. Thank you. With that, I think we don't have any other further business to attend to tonight, so just a quick
Motion to
announcements
adjourn.
again that we have a special council meeting on scheduled right now for January 15th and January 17th, 2019, 6 to 8 p.m. Bob, sorry, I interrupted your great comment.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes, I think that there was something in some of the department, or the staff reports from community development having to do with the environmental impact study for the mill site.
That's correct. The department reports are in writing. It has been updated for beginning of January. The December update is the draft is not delivered to City Hall. And at some point this month, we'll check in and see if their last update has changed. So as of now, we do not have a draft EIS from them.
So we don't have anything, or we do?
We do not.
We do not. Oh, okay, I thought that it said we did, so we don't. All right.
All right, so there's a motion on the table and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Enjoy the rest of your long evening. Bob, are we